Bar says up to 400 people would come by their $10 produce bags at the start of the summer. Now, more than 800 people are showing up. Esteban Velobar says food inflation is pricing many people out.
That's the sad reality that a lot of our participants are facing, is that if they can't get access to food, then they're sacrificing something. So whether that be medication, whether that be the ability to go to a doctor because they can't afford the transportation, whether that be not feeding themselves because they have to feed their children.
Harvest Manitoba says its food hamper numbers have also gone up from 24,000 households in 2025 to 27,000 as of April of this year. 30 years after the murder of rapper Tupac Shakur, the trial of Dwayne Keefe D. Davis is now set to get underway. Steve Futterman reports from Las Vegas.
For nearly 3 decades, it's been one of the most talked about unsolved murders. Today, Dwayne Davis, a former powerful gang leader, goes on trial. He isn't accused of pulling the trigger, but rather putting together all the elements to make sure it happened. The prosecution's key evidence is Davis's own words from his 2019 memoir and interviews. Davis admits supplying the gun used in the attack and being in the car that pulled up alongside Shakur. Legal analyst Caroline Polisi.
He really spoke pretty openly about his involvement in this alleged murder, and that is now coming back to haunt him.
The defense claims that Davis was embellishing and fabricating, hoping to increase sales of his book. And Davis now also says he wasn't even in Las Vegas the night of the killing. The trial is expected to last 4 to 5 weeks, and there will be TV cameras in the courtroom. Steve Futterman, CBC News, Las Vegas.
A Winnipeg basketball coach says the Sea Bears championship win is sure to inspire players of all ages. Amrit Bassi with the Attack basketball program was taking part in a community-run tournament over the weekend. He says Winnipeg's championship gives young players something extra to look forward to.
To have like pros from Winnipeg on the team, and then to see them win it, I think it's really inspiring, right? Like the next generation, like you'll see guys behind me. These guys are the next generation, like they're up next, and like these guys get to be, like right courtside with those guys to watch them win.
Bassi says a lot of people in his generation went pro overseas, but didn't have the chance to see professional ball in the Manitoba capital. And that's the CBC News from Winnipeg. In the forecast for today, we're looking for a mix of sun and cloud, chance of showers, a risk of a thunderstorm, a gusty southwest wind, and a high of 23. For Brandon today, a mix of sun and cloud, chance of showers, a high of 22. Dauphin today, mix of sun and cloud, chance of showers, a high of 23. In Flin Flon today, sunny early this morning, we're looking at a high of 17. Thompson, increasing cloud, chance of showers, a high of 14. You're listening to CBC.
Good morning. I'm Saroja Coelho. Coming up in this half hour, Today Explained, a daily guide to the stories shaping our world.
Some surveys of Gen Z have found that more than half of them, when asked what they want to do for a living, say influencer.
So I'm going to do my game day makeup routine using all of my favorite Maybelline products.
Look how unreal the packaging is. It's actual perfection.
I'm literally glowing.
It's a job, and for some people, it can be and has been a very good job.
If you look at like influencing at its sort of peak, when it really matured in the late 2010s, what you saw was, and what kids saw was like people that were getting really, really rich just by like having fun with their friends and being themselves. Like what kid doesn't want to do that?
But thanks to changing trends online, a certain type of middle-class influencer is vanishing. It's become harder to make a living. Creator Jacqueline Hill sums it up like this.
I feel like I get punished and penalized for not showing up and creating all the time.
Coming up on Today Explained from Vox, influencer recession.
My name is Rebecca Jennings. I'm a features writer at New York Magazine.
You recently wrote that we are in the midst of an influencer recession. What do you mean? What is this?
So it is a lot harder to be an influencer now than it was even a couple of years ago. There's simply too much competition. You're competing against people that have armies of people clipping videos and sending them out onto social media platforms and stealth marketing campaigns. And there's really no way to break through the noise unless you are doing something really out of the box, which is a lot of times that means rage baiting or making such amazing content that like no one can possibly compete with it.
I found this like finally just now. I was like, why don't I check and see what hairspray this is, because it's really good. I found this on my dresser. I think I put wood shellac for woodwork in my hair. Please tell me this comes out.
The idea of me being representative for the state of California came to me in a dream, in a vision, if you will. It's so vivid to me.
And the reason this matters is because we are spending so much more time scrolling our phones than we ever have. The stuff that we watch used to be like TV shows, music, movies. Now it's just like regular people making content. So like the stuff that really breaks through our algorithms changes the way we interact with the world. It changes the way we behave, what we buy, how we think, everything. And so the kinds of people that can make careers making content really matters. The problem is that for the average middle-class influencer, that economy is getting a lot more tricky, just like the regular economy is getting a lot trickier for a lot of us.
Okay, so what exactly happened?
Okay, so right now, influencers are having to compete with absolutely everything. Celebrities too, regular people too. Like everyone knows the feeling of posting online and you're just like, I feel like no one saw this. Like I feel like I'm shouting into a void. And a lot of like established influencers with millions of followers are feeling the same thing. And so a lot of that is because the internet has so much more content than it used to, even a couple of years ago. I think AI is a huge part of that. You know, you feel like you're online and everything is just like slop. There's just like mountains of this that you have to push through. And at the same time, you also have, you know, the world's biggest pop stars, movie studios, podcasts. They are paying, you know, armies of people on Discord to flood social media with clips of them so that maybe like a couple of those videos will go viral and break through the noise and show up on new people's For You pages. It's a lot harder than it used to be if you're not part of that sort of just like really like tiny percentage of things that will break through and end up on someone's page. Then you're kind of just stuck shouting into a void.
You profiled an influencer named Audrey Peters. Tell me about what happened with her and what she learned about all this.
Yeah, so Audrey Peters is an influencer that got big in the early 2020s.
What your go-to drink at a pregame says about you? Let's do it. My ranking of hot male foreign accents? Let's do it.
She was doing this sort of like upper middle class comedy videos about New York City life.
My favorite dinner spots in Manhattan? Let's do it. The zodiac signs as New York City neighborhoods? Let's do it. Kicking this off with the most obvious pairing, the Upper East Side and Taurus, because they have the best taste and are also the most materialistic, so obviously.
And then after a couple years, like the joke started to feel just really stale and she wasn't seeing the same kind of engagement as she used to. Then she pivoted to something that she knew really well, which was luxury. And in 2022, she said like luxury fashion really blew up.
I know I'm late. I've been off the grid in Mexico detoxing, but did you really think I would deprive you of a luxury Christmas haul a la Audrey Peters? But I finally decided it was time to crack and I got the Valentino feather jeans and I went all in and got the matching jacket to go with it.
And then like all things, you know, as soon as one thing takes off on social media, then more and more people start to do it. And then it just starts to feel a little bit passé. And so she said around 2024, that's when like her views just started to go down again. And she realized like she's just going to have to pivot forever because this is the way the internet works. Like when one thing works, everyone follows it and then it gets boring after a while. So right now what's really working is rage bait, which I think most people on the internet are very familiar with, which is a creator making something that they know will either be misconstrued or enrage people or drive comments to like the lowest common denominator. And so the series she started was...
So this is everything that I'm DoorDashing to myself in a day.
To the average person, this is really extreme. This is an extreme use of money and plastics. And
what is she ordering?
So her thing is she's like,
because I'm lazy, I hate cooking, and because I can.
So and she told me, she was like, okay, I'm gonna order Starbucks today because everyone gets so mad at me when I order Starbucks because I live 3 blocks from a Starbucks.
This is an iced latte with almond milk, 2 pumps of vanilla cream, cold foam, and cinnamon, and this was $21.20. Cheers.
And the funny part is, this is like the opening of my story, but like she makes this video at the Starbucks and then she's like, actually, I don't need this anymore. Do you want it? And I'm just like, ooh. But yeah. And I mean, she knows what she's doing. She is rage baiting with those videos, but it has been a real success for her. She partnered with DoorDash. And so now she's making money from DoorDash now to keep doing that series. And you know, the idea for it came from a conversation with her and her manager about like, what about your life can we sort of like mine to get people to watch and react. And she said the reaction was like, everyone's calling my manager and me being like, oh my God, we're seeing the comments. Are you okay? And she was like, no, this is exactly what I wanted. So it's all part of this like thing that everybody kind of does now because that's what you have to do to get attention.
Okay, so this thing where I go online and I see an influencer doing something that I'm like, feels completely out of control. And I'm like, oh my God, that is deliberate.
Of course. Oh my gosh. I think a lot of trad wife content very deliberately rage bait, even though many of them won't really admit that.
My husband mentioned that he was craving Coca-Cola the other day, and since we were out of soda, I decided to make him some today.
Yes, I'm a trad wife, and I have trad wife duties. We're going to the grocery store.
A lot of content where, you know, it's like a hot take or something, or they mispronounce a word, or they, you know, like there's so many ways to rage bait that it's almost boring at this point. And I like to think that we're sort of moving past the rage bait world. And I think that's the other part of this, which is while we also have this very like lowest common denominator rage bait content really blowing up, at the same time, there's this real desire for actually educational, actually entertaining, actually niche, novel content that is like genuinely compelling. And so that's why you see so many creators now launching Substacks to be like, hey, I'm actually like very intellectual. I actually have things to say that you can't just, you know, scroll past, that you actually have to take the time, and maybe it's behind a paywall. So maybe it feels a little bit elevated to sort of build this sort of, you know, walled garden of intellect in a world of slop on the feed.
We on Today Explained have done coverage about lots of types of entry-level jobs drying up in the American economy. Some people speculate that has to do with AI. Some people speculate it has to do with older workers hanging on longer. Some people say, you know, the economy is just broadly shifting. Is this another entry-level job? Is this another job, career that Gen Z wants that runs the risk of just going away on them?
100%.
Wow.
Like, this is just like everything. It is so much harder to start out as an influencer than it used to be because of all these reasons that we're talking about.
Where does that leave us, do you think?
With a lot of disillusioned young people that are used to a lot of rejection in their lives, and maybe sort of turn towards their role as like passive consumer, passive scroller, who is just a little bit more cynical about the way things are. And they would be right to think so because it is hard and it is worse.
Rebecca Jennings is a writer for New York Magazine. And hey, she said something very interesting in this interview.
That's why you see so many creators now launching Substacks to be like, hey, I'm actually like very intellectual.
That made us wonder about the intellectual influencers. Who are they and what are they up to?
Beauty, style. Today Explained.
I'm Noelle King. We're with Lucy McGuire. Lucy's a features director at Vogue Business. All right, so in the first half of the show, we were talking to our colleague Rebecca Jennings about how it's becoming harder and harder to make a living as an influencer. And she said something that got us sort of fascinated, which is that there is a certain type of...
This is CBC Winnipeg. Here are the lineup tones in advance of the CBC Winnipeg weekday morning show.
Who are we talking about, and what are they flogging, or what are they drawing our attention to?
So I'd say that the most powerful example right now is Jack Edwards. So he's a literary influencer. He's a book talk influencer. You may have seen him the other day, actually, because he did an interview with Zendaya for the press junket of The Odyssey.
Well, Zendaya, I have to ask you, what is your required reading? What are the books you think everyone should read?
And she recognized him straight away and was like,
I have followed your YouTube for quite a while. You've given me many book recommendations.
Zendaya, you can't say that.
So he goes online, he recommends literature for people. He's got a Goodreads account as well that people follow him on. And I'd say that he is kind of the prime example. And what we're seeing at Vogue Business is, brands want a piece of this pie. So Jack, for example, has worked a lot with Valentino. You see him at runway shows. That would have been unheard of. A few years ago, having a kind of book influencer at a runway show just wouldn't have happened. But it just shows that people are really looking for meaning from their content.
Dua Lipa. Dua Peep. She seems like she fits in this mold.
I launched a podcast, which I love because it gives me the opportunity to speak one-to-one with some of my favorite authors. I read as much as time allows, and while some of the books I love become book club titles, others remain private passions. I'm a reader who loves to be immersed in a novel, and I mean really deeply in it.
It's quite funny because people do say that it's performative, and we had the whole performative male phenomenon as well, where men were of reading outside on the pavement. But I do think the stars like us want to do things that are meaningful. Dua Lipa's a big pop star. Maybe that doesn't hold as much kind of intellectual power, so she's kind of broadening her scope and being like, yeah, you know what? I actually, in my spare time, do go offline. I do pick up a book, and I'm going to share that with you. So I think people are interested in it. I mean, obviously some people criticize the approach, but I think a lot of people really engage with her recommendations and her content as well.
When you and I and other people who are watching the influencers online watch this stuff, what is it that we want to get out of it? Is it just like, oh, here's a book recommendation from somebody whose name and face I know?
I think the key thing is that we all feel like we're constantly being sold to right now. We actually did a study earlier this year with Gen Z, and the main takeaway from it was that they feel like social media is mindless and that they feel like they're just being sold to all the time. Like everyone's an influencer and everybody's selling. I think it's interesting to zoom in on Gen Z when we're talking about how culture is moving in this way, because book talk, film talk, all of these intellectual influencer crazes are proliferating on TikTok. And as we know, the majority of TikTok users are Gen Z, with an increasing cohort being Gen Alpha as well. So A, Gen Zs are the ones that are consuming a lot of this culture, but B, Gen Z are the ones also driving culture. We found again and again that the younger people in the household are the ones who are driving brand awareness, influencer awareness. So they're the ones who are showing this content and sharing this content and talking about this content around the dinner table. So I think it's important, when we're having these conversations, to really zoom in on young people and why they love intellectual influencers right now.
I know you're tired of just doom scrolling without any purpose, so here are some influencers that I love that genuinely make a difference in my physical and mental health.
I'm trying to consume less brain rot content, and so these are some of my favorite creators on this app that intellectually stimulate or inspire me or just add value to my life.
In today's essay, we're going to be talking about how to build an intellectual life.
And what also is really interesting about Gen Z, of course, is their spending power. They might have cultural influence, but also they have an expected spending power of 12 trillion by 2030. That's according to a 2025 report from the Bank of America. So not only are they driving culture, but also they are going to be driving the performance of a lot of businesses looking ahead.
Tell me more about what Gen Z told you guys in this study. What were you asking, and what did you find that distinguishes Gen Z as a generation?
So the really interesting thing was the idea of friction. So they feel like we've now entered this world where shopping, social media, everything is completely frictionless. And so they've kind of lost the thrill of the chase. So we found that a huge majority of them, no longer feel like shopping is an event. They actually have a lot of doom and guilt because they kind of do it mindlessly and then regret it later. So my favorite stat from the study is that 72% of the Gen Zs we surveyed said they would rather own a Walmart Workin than an Hermes Birkin. Now, a Walmart Workin is kind of a dupe of an Hermes Birkin, the most coveted luxury handbag that you can own that retails for in excess of $10,000. A Walmart Workin is a dupe that you can get for much, much less than that, but looks kind of similar design-wise, has a similar size, the materials look the same from far away.
The real Birkin bag that people are buying, they're only buying those bags because it is a display of wealth and a class status symbol. You're just buying that for the label, for the status.
I just like the way Birkins look, but even if I could afford a $10,000+ bag, I would never spend that much money on a bag.
And I just think it's really funny that Gen Zs you know, it's kind of tongue in cheek that they would rather spend their money elsewhere on experiences and on their daily luxuries like their matcha than save up their life savings to buy a luxury handbag. I think it shows us a lot about where their taste is at right now and how they perceive luxury today.
That is super interesting. Do you think that that is just part of being young? Like, I'm a millennial, and I remember the whole rap on millennials was like, millennials want experiences. They don't want stuff. It sounds like you're saying something similar, except I don't know how many millennials knew what a Birkin was when we were their age. Like, I don't remember knowing about things that were that fancy. What do you think is distinct about Gen Z? Or do you think this is just what it means to be young?
I think with Gen Z, you know, they're extremely aware of brands. And actually, you know, they're more aware just of culture than we were as millennials. I'm a millennial too. You know, because of short form video, because of platforms like TikTok, they're seeing the same content that people of all ages are seeing. And they're so aware of luxury culture and you know, celebrities and what brands they're wearing. But I think that they also see a lot of content online that kind of questions the value of luxury goods. So when the tariffs came in the US this last year, there were loads of videos from factories in China claiming to be the manufacturers of luxury goods and saying that they make the bags for $50 and it's these brands who are hiking up the prices. And whether they were true or not, whether the claims were true and all these videos were authentic, they went so viral on TikTok with young people kind of being like, yeah, we're validated. This isn't worth the price and we're going to spend our money on other things.
I will never buy a designer bag off the shelf retail price. Never, ever, ever.
That you're buying a luxury brand out of theater. You're buying it to show people, to put on a costume of wealth and to put on a costume that you're of a certain social class and to put on a costume that allows you a certain amount of like social currency.
So I think, you know, the difference is that they have so much more information at their fingertips and whether it's true or not, they really jump on the bandwagon of the idea that luxury isn't worth it.
You know, underpinning all of this is always going to be the fact that we do live in capitalist economies, right? And so companies are going to want to find ways to make money off of people. If we're shifting toward, it's cool to be an influencer who talks about books or other intellectual pursuits, who makes money and how?
Well, the influencers make money through brand deals, and a lot of brands are trying to cash in on this more intellectual economy, let's call it. A good example I mentioned earlier, Valentino is working with Book Talk's Jack Edwards, who's kind of the king of literary influence right now. Also, Miu Miu is, you know, tapping into intellectual pursuits. They have a book club. They also have a film night where they spotlight women directors and they invite local communities. So actually, you know, brands are really plowing money into this. And we actually just published a story on Vogue Business about ballet and how ballet is emerging as kind of an unlikely new opportunity for fashion. It's obviously been tied to it forever. You know, Coco Chanel was outfitting the ballet back in her day. But we're seeing more and more brands invest in ballet patronage, invest in ballet events, work with ballet dancers in campaigns. Because again, it's an intellectual pursuit that's kind of hard earned in a world where, you know, anything can be generated and online things are quite meaningless. Something like ballet that requires years and years of work is something that brands want to attach themselves to. It's kind of a refined pursuit. So yeah, I would say like the money's coming from the brands and these intellectual influencers are really cashing in.
Is there something, this makes me all feel a little bit optimistic and I'm not quite sure why. Tell me why I'm feeling this. I think it matters that young people want to be smart. I think it certainly matters that young people want to read and think books and other, you know, other arts are worth pursuing. But you have an eye on the big picture. Is this just another sort of like moment where, is this another capitalist flash in the pan? And then, you know, 5 years from now, the young people just want stuff again?
Perhaps, but I actually think that what we're seeing in our initial research of Gen Alpha is that this kind of, you know, touch grass, unplugging movement isn't going anywhere. I think the way that Gen Alpha are growing up, you know, their parents who are younger millennials and some of their parents are Gen Zs are limiting their screen time significantly more than millennials' parents were. You know, I think that they are growing up in a world where the computer and the iPad and the phone is kind of an accoutrement to life rather than the central point. So the rise of the intellectual influencer may be flashing the pan in terms of, I'm not sure if we're all going to be watching Book Talk forever. But I do think that this kind of unplugging touch grass movement in culture is going nowhere. The way that Gen Alpha are growing up means that we've got way more to come, and when they kind of move into the spotlight as consumers. So I think it's an exciting time where we're actually searching for meaning and connection more than ever, and it will take us offline.
That was Lucy McGuire with Vogue Business. Ariana Espudo produced today's show, and Amina El Sadi edited. Patrick Boyd and David Tadishore engineered, and Gabriel Donatov was on fax. The rest of the team includes Hadi Mawagdi, Denise Guerra, Miles Bryan, Peter Balanon, Rosa and Danielle Hewitt, Kelly Wessinger, and Dustin DeSoto. Our supervising team is Avishai Artsy and Jolie Myers. We use music by Breakmaster Cylinder. Miranda Kennedy has France in her pants. Sean Ramsfirm has sand in his pants. I'm your half-white son. Today Explained is distributed by WNYC, and the show is a part of Vox.
Good morning, Manitoba. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. Happy Monday. It is August 17th. Good to be with you. I'll be with you all week in for Marcy. And let's say hello to the wonderful team helping put together today's show. Jenica Sewell is our studio technician, and Sierra Sanders is our studio director. She'll be keeping an eye on your commute as well. And Darren Morash is our YouTube producer, keeping an eye on YouTube. Let's also say hello to Megan Ketchison, who will be in all morning with an eye on news headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a community organization in Winnipeg that hosts meal programs and offers produce bags at a reduced price says demand for food is skyrocketing. Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation is in Elmwood. We'll hear from the executive director, who says up to 400 people would come to buy their $10 produce bags at the start of the summer. Now, more than 800 people are showing up. And we'll also hear how the Sea Bears championship win is sure to inspire players of all ages. The Attack basketball program was taking part in a community-run tournament over the weekend. The coach says the Winnipeg championship gives young players something extra to work towards. And we'll have more at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Megan.
You are welcome.
Lots coming up on this edition of Information Radio. Later on in the show, we're going to have a Mars rover in studio, so stay tuned for that. It's pink, believe it or not. Also coming up, we're also going to have someone who's going to compete in the World Sauna Championships from Winnipeg. So we're going to hear their story of how they do a kind of special sauna dance. That's coming up. But this hour on the show, stay tuned. We're just days away from a new round of American tariffs. Unless negotiators can reach a deal that satisfies both countries, will they get there? We're going to have that conversation coming up. Also, first up on the program, the Winnipeg Sea Bears won the CEBL championship. I got to watch it over the weekend from the beer can. Very exciting. We're going to hear from Winnipegger forward Simon Hildebrand and young Manitoba basketball players about what this moment means for them. Stay tuned for that.
Today on Q.
Sindhu V didn't start out in comedy. She was an investment banker and a stay-at-home mom before finding her voice on stage. Now, she's one of the most sought-after comics working today. She'll be here to talk about grief, family, and why humor matters now more than ever.
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm Mike Wise. Demand for Canadian citizenship is soaring, and it's mostly coming from the United States. New data obtained by CBC News shows citizenship applications have surged since Ottawa made changes under Bill C-3 last year. They rose nearly 50% in April and May alone. And as Elizabeth Thompson explains, it's creating an expanding backlog and piles of paperwork.
Each request, you are going through boxes and boxes of material to find a single document sometimes.
Alyssa Hyduck is president of the Association of Canadian Archivists. Her members are being swamped by requests for genealogical records from people applying for Canadian citizenship certificates, a lot of them Americans. Hyduck says some are going back hundreds of years to prove they had a Canadian ancestor.
A lot of these records are pre-Confederation.
Under new citizenship rules that went into effect in December, anyone who can prove direct descent from a Canadian ancestor is eligible for Canadian citizenship. The certificate allows them to apply for a Canadian passport, live or work in Canada. As of May 31st, more than 6,000 people have been certified Canadian through Bill C-3. More than 17,000 others were granted it because a parent was Canadian. But that's just the tip of a very large iceberg. Currently, more than 121,000 applications are waiting for a decision. The government says that wait could take more than 2 years. The program has also had problems. In June, the government suddenly suspended the certificates issued to 100 people, saying it had concerns about the documents they submitted. Some had already moved to Canada. Most have been resolved, but NDP immigration critic Jenny Kwan wants answers.
So it really makes no sense whatsoever what's going on.
Meanwhile, Hyduck wants government funding to help deal with the flood of requests from people who want to be certified Canadian. Elizabeth Thompson, CBC News, Ottawa.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is in St. John's today for a new energy security announcement. He'll be joined by Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Tony Wakeham and Quebec Premier Christine Frechette. The two provinces are expected to sign an updated agreement on hydropower generated on the Churchill River. The CBC's Patrick Butler has the details.
Newfoundland and Labrador premiers have sought for decades to change the 1969 Churchill Falls contract, a deal as infamous as it is ironclad, which sees Quebec buy Labrador power at bargain basement prices. The current contract doesn't run out until 2041, but Quebec is thirsty for new energy, setting the table for a new price and, in exchange, new hydropower projects in Labrador worth tens of billions. An initial MOU was signed in 2024, but Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Tony Wakeham, backed by an independent panel, launched fresh talks and promised an improved agreement after taking office last fall. Radio-Canada has confirmed a retooled deal to be unveiled today, includes wind power, and will see power generation skyrocket on the Churchill River, surpassing 12,000 megawatts. The deal will also create a dedicated transmission corridor for Newfoundland and Labrador, allowing some power to travel through Quebec and on to other buyers. Ottawa has been pushing the two provinces toward the deal, and federal tax credits are expected to ease construction costs. The new deal comes as an election looms in Quebec, and as crucial support from First Nations hasn't been secured. Patrick Butler for CBC News, St. John's.
U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law is meeting with Israel's prime minister today. Jared Kushner hopes to convince Benjamin Netanyahu to sign a U.S.-backed Gaza peace plan. He reportedly met with the new leader of Hamas, Khalil al-Hayya, in Egypt yesterday. Earlier this month, Netanyahu rejected the Gaza Board of Peace's proposal, claiming it does not sufficiently guarantee Hamas will disarm. Netanyahu is facing pressure from Israeli hardliners in the lead-up to an election in October. Opening statements begin today in the Tupac Shakur murder trial. The rapper was shot and killed in Las Vegas nearly 30 years ago. 63-year-old Dwayne Davis is charged with his murder based on his own memoir. Reporter Steve Futterman has the latest from Las Vegas.
For nearly 3 decades, it's been one of the most talked about unsolved murders. Today, Dwayne Davis, a former powerful gang leader, goes on trial. He isn't accused of pulling the trigger, but rather putting together all the elements to make sure it happened. The prosecution's key evidence is Davis's own words from his 2019 memoir and interviews. Davis admits supplying the gun used in the attack and being in the car that pulled up alongside Shakur. Legal analyst Caroline Polisi.
He really spoke pretty openly about his involvement in this alleged murder, and that is now coming back to haunt him.
The defense claims that Davis was embellishing and fabricating, hoping to increase sales of his book. And Davis now also says he wasn't even in Las Vegas the night of the killing. A cousin of Shakur, William Lassane, believes Davis is responsible.
He admitted his role in the murder of Tupac Shakur. Continuously, repeatedly, he was screaming it out publicly. So The guilt lies with what he said himself.
The trial is expected to last 4 to 5 weeks, and there will be TV cameras in the courtroom. Steve Futterman, CBC News, Las Vegas.
Actress Hayden Panettiere has died. The 36-year-old starred in the hit TV series Nashville and Heroes, but she began her career at just 8 months old. Panettiere described her difficult introduction to Hollywood to CBS back in May.
Every moment on set, I didn't care about anybody else's opinion but my mom's.
Yeah.
Because I knew that if she was unhappy with my performance in any way, that the rest of the day was going to be ruined.
Yes.
It was going to be a very bad day.
Panettiere had been promoting her book, This Is Me, A Reckoning. In it, she describes her struggles with postpartum depression and addiction. The actress would have turned 37 on Friday. No cause of death has been announced. Nearly 130 wildfires are burning across British Columbia, including the Bald Range Fire near Okanagan Lake. Residents of more than 1,000 properties in the Summerland area have been cleared to return. They live closest to the lake in areas mostly untouched by the fire. But as the CBC's Helen Pike reports, many more people are still waiting to learn the fate of their homes.
Hello, this is a critical alert from District of Summerland.
For Zane and Kirsten Scullard, they didn't know what to expect as they rounded the corner, but quickly, relief.
We're just praying for the firefighters, to be honest, because we're good. Our home is safe, and thanks to them.
Yeah, I have to say it's been overwhelming.
Nearby, Sandy Martins was packed for a vacation when the evacuation order dropped. Back now, the house is just how he left it.
Same as any other day after work. Yeah, except it's like a ghost town around here, so it's quiet.
Yeah, it's kind of devastating.
Melody Willis found out through word of mouth the fire hit her farm.
I don't know what's left. I've heard all the fencing is gone.
She wishes those in her situation had more clarity ahead of the phased re-entry planning.
I completely understand.
Mayor Doug Holmes sympathizes, but he doesn't have a lot of clarity or answers either.
There are still a couple parts of town where fire is still burning, power lines are down.
The mayor says residents home now are still under an evacuation alert. A wind change could threaten the district again.
It is getting larger, still out of control. The reason we're able to bring people back to Summerland is it's growing away from Summerland.
The mayor is cautious but optimistic that more people can go home in the coming days. Helen Pike, CBC News, Summerland, British Columbia.
Also in BC, Tumbler Ridge is demolishing its only high school today. Earlier this year, an 18-year-old opened fire inside the building, killing students, a staff member, and then herself. As CBC's Michelle Allen tells us, officials hope demolishing the site will help the community move on.
Careful, staged, trauma-informed. That's how officials describe the teardown of Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, where a shooter killed 5 children and 1 education assistant in February. Once the site of one of Canada's deadliest mass shootings, they'll restore the lot to grass by the fall. Chad Anderson is the school district's chair. He previously told CBC that crews spent several weeks removing everything from the building.
Starting from the inside out, effectively.
They compacted everything and drove it in covered trucks to landfills in other towns, where they made sure it was covered quickly. Necessary steps to prevent scavengers from looking for souvenirs in the tragedy, he said.
This process has been designed to ensure that's not possible and that, people can expect privacy through this.
Tumbler Ridge was the community's only high school. It's been closed since the shooting. Students have been taking classes in portables. Premier David Eby said in May that the plan was to build a new school somewhere else as quickly as possible. They'll have access to $200 million in funding from the federal and provincial governments to do it. We don't know where the new school will be or what it will look like, only that it will be different. Michelle Allen, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Mike Wise. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. 16 degrees right now at the Forks, warming up to 23 right now. Bit of a chance of thunder showers actually this morning and also a little bit later today. I'll have the details for you just ahead. But coming up this hour on the show, will they or won't they? We're going to get the latest update on trade negotiations between Canada and the U.S. as the Wednesday deadline for a deal approaches. Also this hour, hundreds of used shoes are now in the hands of new owners. A local organization collected over 500 pairs of footwear for those in need. We're going to hear that story. Also, Canadian payment processing company Moneris is being sold to a U.S. private equity firm for $2 billion. We're going to hear from a U of M prof about what the deal could mean for Canadians in control of our payment system. But also, first on the show, the Sea Bears. You got to talk about the big game on Saturday. The Sea Bears won the CEBL championship. We're going to hear from Winnipegger forward Simon Hildebrand and young Manitoba basketball players about what this moment means to them. Right now, though, it is 6:11. Let's check in with Megan Ketchison with a look at news headlines.
Well, with those Sea Bears, the Winnipeg basketball community is still buzzing about their championship win. We'll hear about how this is inspiring the next generation of players in this city. And a community organization in Winnipeg that hosts a meal program and offers produce bags at reduced prices says demand for food is skyrocketing. The Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation is in Elmwood, and we'll hear from the executive director who says the number of people coming for their reduced priced produce bags has doubled over the summer. And that's coming up at 6:30.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you.
That is Megan Ketchison at your CBC News desk. Let's take a look at your weather now. As mentioned, 16 right now in Winnipeg at the Forks, warming up to 23 today. About a 30% chance of showers this morning, probably within the next couple hours. And then it's going to get a little clearer throughout the day. And then there's a bit of a chance showers tonight, about a 30% chance of showers again this evening. It's a very similar forecast actually throughout much of southern Manitoba as well, all the way from Brandon down to Steinbach. Chance of showers and thunderstorms this morning, and then again in the kind of late afternoon, early evening time as well. We'll have more of a regional forecast for you coming up later this hour. And joining us now in studio is Sierra Sanders, who's in with a look at your commute. Hello.
Hi, Corey. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Oh, you know.
Did you watch the big Sea Bears game?
I did. I was tuned in on CBC Gem, which was it was great. It worked great, and it was super exciting.
That's great. We tried to watch the game. We went to the beer can with our kids because they were showing the game, and it was mostly just us chasing our kids around trying to like catch little peeks.
Little piece of the game. Did you watch the game-winning shot though? At least.
Oh, we did. You know what? We didn't actually. I think I was chasing out one of my kids who had just fallen down into the gravel.
Oh, okay. So you were putting out fires somewhere else.
I was putting out fires, but I heard it was great.
Oh, well, it was great. It was really fun to watch. And of course, it just had to be a Winnipegger to score the game-winning shot.
I know, right?
There.
It couldn't get more storybook than
that.
Yeah.
Exactly. So far, your commute is looking pretty storybook out there right now. Not hearing about any major backups or situations at the moment. But I do want to note a pretty big closure, actually, for the week on Plessis Road. So from today until Friday, August 21st, there's a full closure of all northbound and southbound lanes between Camille Sis. I apologize to all the Transconians out there. I cannot pronounce
one of those
that.
words you ever read but never said.
That's exactly it. So Camille Sis. So from that street and Autumn Way for rail crossing construction and maintenance. Travel will be temporarily restored in both directions from Fermor Avenue to the CN Terminal / Autumn Way there. So pretty substantial closure there for your week that you might want to keep an eye out for or keep in mind there and maybe find an alternate route there if that is the case. But the morning, if there is something that's getting in your way, whether you are here in Winnipeg or anywhere else in the province, I'd love to hear from you. So give me a call on that CBC commuter line. The number is 204-788-3093.
Well, as mentioned, the Winnipeg Sea Bears are now CEBL champions. And they did it Saturday in front of over 12,000 fans, breaking the league attendance record.
Everybody on their feet at Canada Life Center. Anticipating a CEBL title. Hildebrand from downtown. Hey! Like that. Hey! Hey! Well, folks, break out the seal meat and the champagne because it's definitely a Sea Bear summer as they win their first CEBL title.
Those are the sounds of the game-winning shot. It was Winnipegger Simon Hildebrand who hit the shot of a lifetime, scoring that game winner against the Brampton Honey Badgers. Here's what he told media about that moment.
It was super random. I had like no thoughts, no emotions. It was just it all kind of went blank, and then started celebrating.
Being the kid from here to get the game winner to bring the championship to the city, what's that like?
Yeah, definitely a special feeling. It just shows like we have such a great organization, such great teammates, coaches, fans, the city. You know, having all these fans here and just giving us all that energy throughout the night. You know, the close first half and just having that extra energy helped us pull away in the third.
We hope that this maybe does for like another kid who's in the crowd watching you guys tonight. You guys maybe did.
Yeah, I think you can see we had a number of Winnipeg guys on this team. A lot of guys who played their high school basketball in Winnipeg. A lot of guys who went to local universities here. Now get a chance to showcase their skills on the biggest stage in Canada. So I think it just really shows that if you keep working, you can do it for Winnipeg.
Not just from today, but most definitely cemented today. You have thousands of fans in this city. You've heard 15,500 plus here today, and countless more watching, listening on the radio, watching on TV. What's your message for them?
Being a kid from Winnipeg who grew up here, it just means so much to me that I'm able to do this in this city. I think this city is a really special place, and a lot of people who aren't from here don't all the time realize that. So, to anybody who is watching out there, just Winnipeg's a special place, and I think you just got to come here and realize it for yourself.
Well, as you heard in that tape there, Simon's got many fans here in the city. And yesterday, CBC's Gavin Axelrod went to Maples Collegiate basketball court, and that's where he spoke to a young Sea Bears fan.
Vera Burrard, going to grade 11.
For you, growing up, having a pro basketball team in the city, what's it like for you? Like how?
It's really cool. It's just like a place to go with your team. A lot of provincial teams go there, so it's a cool experience because I know like my dad didn't have one, and like guys before the Sea Bears didn't have one. So it's just a good place to look up to, and especially with like Simon and Emmanuel Aycott. Seeing that you can go, like Simon went to U of M and then played on the Sea Bears, it's pretty cool to see.
So when you saw Simon hit the game winner last night, how did you feel?
That was awesome. So my mom worked with Simon's mom. It's pretty cool, so, like, just because he's a hometown kid, and he put up pretty good numbers throughout the season, but he thrived in playoffs, which was pretty cool.
How much does it kind of like inspire you that maybe one day you could play professional basketball in front of people that you grew up with?
It's pretty cool. It's just something I want to work towards, right? It's another motivating factor along with many other things.
So, does it like give you extra motivation now that this team is here? Because they weren't here when you were younger, and now they're here.
Yeah, I mean, not really. I always have this motivation that I want to be the best, but it's like you can see your own path, right? There's like, where would I play pro? But now it's like another goal I want to achieve is play for the Sea Bears, right?
What's that mean to you? Maybe one day wearing that jersey.
It'd be pretty cool seeing all my family in the stands and stuff. It'd be a pretty cool experience.
Gavin Axelrod speaking to a young Sea Bears fan at Maples Collegiate basketball court. And if you want to read more about this epic win, you can visit cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Manitoba is a conversation that never stops. From your first coffee with information radio to the midday pulse of Radio Noon and the drive home with Up to Speed. Don't let your day get in the way of your favorite shows. Just open the CBC News app, tap the local drop-down, and hit play. Bring your community with you. Download the CBC News app and stay live with us.
6:20 right now. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Now let's shift gears here to talk business. Well, national business turned, I guess, international business. Processing electronic payments It's big business. And now a company that handles about 1/3 of all commerce in Canada is being sold to a U.S. private equity firm. Moneris is currently owned by RBC and BMO. The sale is worth $2 billion, and it's raising questions about how much control Canada has over important digital services. And for more, we've reached David Gerhard. He's a professor of computer science at the University of Manitoba. Hi there, David.
Hi, Corey.
So why does it matter that Moneris is being sold to a U.S. private equity firm?
So there's sort of 2 points that privacy experts are a little bit concerned about. Point one is that Moneris owns a lot of data around Canadians' credit card transactions, right? It's been a Canadian company since 2000 when RBC and BMO invented this joint venture to run digital credit card transactions. And so all of the transactions that they've done since then, they of course have that data, and that data will now be in the United States, as well as data about the companies that do these transactions. So a company would buy credit card services from Moneris, and the company information, addresses and contact information, financial information, that's all in the States now. Then the second real question is does this represent an ongoing increase in the Americanization of the services that we rely on for our digital lives, right? This is one of the last Canadian companies that does credit card transaction, and now most of these companies are in the States. And so if a company here wants to buy digital credit card services from somebody, they pretty much have to go to an American company now. And so that raises questions of sovereignty, right? How much does Canada control the sort of technologies of the commerce of the internet these days?
So then now what Canadian regulatory hurdles does this deal still need to clear, and what are the chances it could be blocked, specifically because of those concerns around sovereignty?
Yeah, so privacy and sovereignty are not really part of the conversation when it comes to regulatory approval of a deal like this. It will go through a number of regulators. It will look at sort of competition and financial aspects, but those are very unlikely to be declined. It's very likely that the sale will go through and is expected to be completed sometime Q1 of 2027.
And then what could change for Canadian businesses and consumers after the sale?
So for most part, not really much would change, right? Most Canadians don't really know which credit card transaction company they are using when they're actually making a purchase online or in a digital context, because those services are sort of third-party services, right? You're buying something from a company, that company is buying services from Moneris or somebody else. And for the most part, those are already all American companies. And so Canadians day to day, they'll still make credit card transactions, and those will still be processed by something somewhere. And in terms of the organizations, the companies, small and medium businesses that buy their credit card services from Moneris, that also won't change because Moneris will still exist, and they'll be owned by now an American holding company instead of these Canadian banks. But they've made a commitment to continue operations in the same way that they had before. And so things will continue for the most part as they had before.
Do you think, as mentioned before, that when there's regulators looking at these kind of things, should Canada start thinking about building regulations over these big transactions around either data privacy or even thinking about sovereignty when they're considering whether to approve these big deals?
I think it's a good question, and I think it's something that really hasn't been considered before, but probably should. Right? 5 years ago, this would have been a non-issue. Companies are sold between countries all the time, and there wasn't really a problem with it. It's only because of the increased tensions between Canada and the U.S. these days in terms of trade and everything else that this now becomes a question about, is it okay for our data to live in the States, and is it okay for the control of these digital technologies to now move to the States? And so as the federal government is having conversations about updating our fairly old privacy regulations, PIPEDA is quite old now, and so they're talking about these new versions of these privacy regulations. It might make sense to also say, and by the way, if we're talking about moving vast swaths of Canadian data overseas, maybe that should be part of the regulatory conversation.
And just so because people are probably going to go about the day, they're going to keep tapping their cards, and they might not think about actually what the risks might be. What are the risks if Canada becomes too dependent on foreign-owned companies for payments?
Yeah, so it's like everything else, right? All of our digital technologies relies on corporations to build these technologies, and most of those corporations live in the States, right? We buy our communication services and our email and our word processing and everything else. In the context of financial transactions, we buy our financial transaction equipment, and those companies all also buy services from other places, right? So credit card transaction company will need to buy database services from somebody. We'll need to buy communication services from somebody. So it all in this great big intermingled stack of technologies that all work together. And again, for the most part, that has worked well for in the past, but we're starting to see chinks around the edges where something happens somewhere where a company can just turn off the switch on one of these services, and then we don't really have any recourse for that. And so countries around the world, organizations around the world are starting to say, maybe we should sort of have our own version of some of these technologies, just in case things continue to be not as good as we'd like them to be.
I think there's been a couple Moneris outages over the past couple of years, if I recall, and it's been like kind of chaotic for a day or so while they try to get back up. So I remember those days. Can this kind of foreign investment though actually be good maybe for Canadian companies in the long run? Is there an angle to that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the banks will do well, right? RBC and BMO are Canadian banks, and they will profit significantly off of this sale, right? I mean, they built this company in 2000, 26 years ago, because they needed something to do with these this newfangled online credit card processing, and so they built this company to do this thing. And now, because it is more of a, it's a thing that happens every day. It's not that exciting or new anymore, and so it becomes a commodity, right? And they can sell it off and then make that money, bring that money back into Canada, and use that for Canadian investment. So from that perspective, RBC and BMO will do well. Whether or not day-to-day operations will be better for Canadians, it's a good question. About your previous point about consolidation of services and then the risks that implies. If everybody is using the same technology or the same company for a service, and that service goes down, like you said, with the Moneris outages in the past, we've seen these kind of outages across the sector when everybody uses one company for one particular service, and that company then something bad happens, then everybody loses in that context.
So then, what should Canada consider, an essential digital infrastructure, especially when it comes to technology and payment systems that we do rely on every day?
Yeah, I think when it comes to essential services, what we're talking about is what happens if everything goes down and we must have this kind of service to carry forward. So the kind of transactions that we're talking about, these kind of credit card transactions, for the most part, this is just sort of regular day-to-day economy. But financial transactions that have to happen regularly, have to happen day-to-day, could be considered essential. And maybe there should be some kind of Canadian control or ownership of the organizations that provide the technology that serves those transactions.
And finally here, we have been hearing a lot about digital sovereignty lately. What should Canada be doing to protect it? We talked a little bit about regulators maybe considering it more, but is there anything else?
Yeah, I think the federal government and even provincial governments as well need to be having these conversations about whether there is a way to build these things, build made in Canada solutions for any of these technologies that we rely on day to day, right? Like we talked about before, this great big stack of technologies, there's a lot of things where if one thing breaks, the whole thing breaks. And so maybe we need to be building different versions of these ourselves internally. But what does that look like? Does the federal government provide funding for that? Who's going to actually build these things? And if they build them and make them very successful, do they end up just being sold to some American holding company in the same way that Moneris did? So if we do decide to build out Canadian versions of these technologies to build our tech independence, our tech sovereignty, it's going to have to be done very carefully with some really significant checks and balances.
Well, David, thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
David Gerhard is a professor of computer science at the University of Manitoba. Well, still lots to come here on Information Radio. We're just days away now from a new round of American tariffs, unless negotiators can reach a deal that satisfies both countries. Will they get there? We're going to talk about that. Also, just ahead in your business report, we're getting some new inflation numbers this morning. So we're going to hear what you can expect those numbers to be. That is all coming up right here on Information Radio. And if you see some going on in the commute, been very quiet so far, you can give us a call on the commuter line. Sierra is standing by. The number to call, 204-788-3093. Time now for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg. It's 6:30, mostly cloudy and 16. We have a mix of sun and cloud today, chance of a shower or a thunderstorm later on, and a high of 23. A cross-border investigation has ended with a Manitoba man safely rescued after an alleged abduction. North Dakota State Patrol says a 31-year-old Manitoba man abducted a 37-year-old Winnipeg man yesterday, then crossed into North Dakota. Investigators say they used surveillance cameras, cell phone trackers, and license plate readers to track the suspect vehicle to Alexandria, Minnesota. We're told the victim managed to break free and run to a convenience store. The suspect was arrested shortly afterwards. Police say the investigation continues. A community organization in Winnipeg that hosts meal programs and offers produce bags at reduced prices says demand for food is skyrocketing. Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation is in Elmwood. Executive Director Leilani Esteban Valabar says up to 400 people would come to buy their $10 produce bags at the start of the summer. Now, more than 800 people are showing up. Esteban Valabar says the food inflation is pricing people out.
That's the sad reality that a lot of our participants are facing, is that if they can't get access to food, then they're sacrificing something. So whether that be medication, whether that be the ability to go to a doctor because they can't afford the transportation, whether that be not feeding themselves because they have to feed their children.
Harvest Manitoba says its food hamper numbers have also gone up from 24,000 households in 2025 to 27,000 as of April of this year. Northern Manitobans are sounding the alarm about a lack of veterinary care. Just one full-time veterinary clinic operates in the region. That means pet owners are having to drive over 4 hours for emergency care, sometimes arriving too late for their beloved animals. Oswald Saw is the president of the Thompson Humane Society. He says the shortage has been happening for years and the community is getting desperate.
If anyone, hears this and is interested, that is a vet, we're very open to talk to you, because right now Thompson is in dire need, the region is in dire need of regular veterinary services.
Thompson has not had a full-time vet since 2024. Vets do come to the community for short periods every month, but none are based there. A donation drive brought hundreds of used shoes to one of the city's poorest neighborhoods. Families in North Point Douglas got to pick from over 500 pairs yesterday. Local outreach group Sabu's Cubs hosted the event. Organizer Siobhan Faulkner says the shoes are often taken for granted, but for the city's most vulnerable, having more than one can be a luxury.
There's lots of invisible, underserved people in the community that we don't see on a regular basis, but still have that need for shoes, that need those things that aren't always in your face. And so it just is one more level of support for people.
Faulkner says some families handed shoes they no longer use and got a new pair. The shoe donation drive is in its second year. In international news, the Canada-U.S. trade ministers met with its counterpart of the weekend, trying to hold off those tariffs and lower the ones already in place. But the two sides appear to be far apart, and Canada's booze ban, again, is the middle of it all. Kate McKenna has the latest from Washington.
Sources say the U.S. is digging in, and so are the provinces, and it's putting the Canadian negotiating team in a tough spot. One of the main reasons Donald Trump is threatening new tariffs is to pressure Canadian provinces to end their bans on selling American alcohol. But the booze bans were put in place as retaliation after the U.S. slapped tariffs on key sectors like steel, aluminum, auto, and lumber. So some provinces have said they've got no plans to back down unless those tariffs are also dropped or meaningfully lowered. That has been the negotiators' goal, but sources tell me the U.S. won't go as far as Canada or the provinces want, especially on lumber, a longtime irritant experts say could be difficult to fix over a 30-day window. Both sides remain at the table. U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer met virtually with his Canadian counterpart again on Sunday. It is his birthday, and he chose to spend part of it with Dominic LeBlanc on their third meeting in 1 week. Kate McKenna, CBC News, Washington.
Winnipeg's basketball community is still buzzing about the Sea Bears win over the weekend. Vera Brar is a student at Maples Collegiate who took place in a community-run tournament over the weekend. He says it was special to see hometown player Simon Hildebrandt hit the game winner.
So my mom worked with Simon's mom. It's pretty cool, just because he's a hometown kid, and he put up pretty good numbers throughout the season, but he's thrived in playoffs, which is pretty cool.
Brar says he also hopes to watch the Sea Bears compete for years to come. In addition to their championship win, the Sea Bears also set a league attendance record on Saturday with 12,519 fans. And that's the CBC News for Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Megan.
You are welcome.
That is Megan Ketchison at your CBC News Desk. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. Well, let's take a look now at your regional forecast. Let's start here in Winnipeg. We're at 16 right now. Warming up to 23 today, but there's a bit of a chance of thunderstorms earlier this morning within the next few hours. About a 30% chance of showers, thunderstorms. And then as we go throughout the day, it's going to stay fairly clear. But then by the evening, there's also another chance of thunderstorms here in the city later in the afternoon and evening. So keep an eye out for that. Also about a 30% chance or so. Going to be dipping down, starting to get cooler at night. 10 is the low tonight, and then warming up to 23 again tomorrow. We can expect just a mix of sun and cloud. Brandon, right now, you're sitting at 13. You are warming up to 22. Similar chance, but actually a bit of a higher chance of showers for you today, this morning, about 60% chance or so. Then also again this evening, about a 60% chance of showers and thunderstorms. Mainly sunny tomorrow, though, high of 24. Steinbach, you're sitting at 13 right now. You are warming up to 24 today. 60% chance of showers or thunder showers. Then again tonight, about 30% chance of showers or thunder showers. Tomorrow, though, high of 24. Up in Thompson, good morning to you. 9 right now. Your high is just going to reach 14 today. You also have about a 60% chance of showers today, and then overnight you're dipping down to 7, and then warming up to 16 again tomorrow with a mix of sun and cloud. Well, let's now say hello to Sierra Sanders, who is in with a look at your commute. Hi.
Hi, Corey. I will say you were mentioning the overnight temperatures. That is like sleep with the window open temperature.
It's the best.
It's the best. But
It's so
also,
good.
I mean, to me, that's also the sign that fall
I
is
know.
upon us a little bit.
But I'm okay. I've been slowly pulling out a little more sweaters. I've been kind of bundling up on the way to work in the morning. It's nice.
Yeah, it is nice. So yeah, to me, when I hear that, it makes me excited to cut the AC a little bit and open up the windows. It's just so cozy. Oh, it's my favorite. And so far, the commute should be your favorite. I'm not hearing about any major situations or backups right now here in the first hour of the show on this Monday morning. But I would love to hear from you folks out there if that is changing for you, if something is popping up on your drive, or maybe you're walking, you're biking, however you are getting around today, and wherever you are, I'd love to hear from you. So give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number is 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. That is Sierra Sanders, your studio director. Well, up next year on the show, Neil Herland is here with your business report. Hi there, Neil.
Good morning.
So we are expecting some new inflation numbers this morning. What can we expect?
Yeah, so Corey, StatsCan will release the Consumer Price Index numbers for July at 7:30 this morning. Forecasters and economists predict that Canada's annual inflation rate will rise to 2.9% year over year. That would be up slightly from 2.8% in June. Now, the main driver of inflation would be rising energy and gas prices, which, of course, many are blaming on the on and off again U.S. trade or the U.S. war against Iran. But analysts predict that core inflation is expected to remain near the Bank of Canada's 2% target. The central bank will make its interest rate announcement in 2 weeks from now. But my favorite indicator, food prices are expected to edge lower. And you might notice from a trip to the grocery store, it's still lingering above 3%. So you might want to visit the grocery store on a full stomach to keep your costs down.
Yes, certainly. And Neil, it's down to the wire, of course, for tariff negotiations between Canada and the U.S. What's the latest on that?
Yeah, so as we just heard on your newscast, the clock is ticking on a deadline this Wednesday, 12:01 a.m. That's what U.S. President Donald Trump has set for Canada. If the two sides can't agree to a new deal, then 50% tariffs will come into effect on about $28 billion worth of Canadian goods. We're talking everything from dairy to alcohol, cement, paper pulp, and plywood. The Americans have even thrown hockey sticks on the list, a symbolic slap shot in the face of Canada. But unlike previous tariffs that were announced by the U.S., this time products that are listed under the CUSMA North American trade deal would not be exempt. The exception is major commodities that help the U.S. function, so crude oil, critical minerals, and potash, they're all exempt from these proposed new tariffs. The Minister of Canada-U.S. Trade, Dominic LeBlanc, held a virtual meeting late yesterday afternoon with his counterpart, the American trade rep Jameson Greer. This was their third meeting in the last week. Canada is trying to avert those harsh new tariffs, while also trying to get a lower rate on some of the sectoral tariffs that have been punishing the steel, aluminum, and auto industries. Steel and aluminum currently face 50% tariffs, while autos face tariffs of 25%. One of the big irritants for the White House was the removal of American booze from Canadian shelves. That's something the provinces did, and so the federal government will have to convince them to drop their retaliatory moves as part of any deal with Washington. The Trump administration has described the deadline of this Wednesday as a hard deadline. Doesn't look like there's any wiggle room like we've seen in the past.
And now Canadian jobs hang in the balance. We're already seeing potential consequences. So tell us about that.
Yeah, Corey, the automaker Stellantis is warning the labor union Unifor that it might have to permanently close an assembly plant in Brampton, Ontario, and that would kill 2,200 auto jobs in southern Ontario. The plant was supposed to be retooled to manufacture the Jeep Compass vehicle. Those plans were put on hold when the tariff war broke out between Canada and the U.S. U.S. President Donald Trump wants to make more cars in the States. The Brampton plant was temporarily idled more than a year ago when Stellantis decided to move production of the Jeep Compass to the U.S., so that's more potential bad news for the Canadian auto sector as the tariff talks continue in Washington.
Well, Neil, thank you.
You're welcome.
That is Neil Herland with your business news. Well, up next here on Information Radio, hundreds of used shoes now have a new home. Yesterday, a local organization lined up over 500 pairs of footwear for those in need. Sabu's Cubs is a Winnipeg-based nonprofit organization focused on youth empowerment, and they began collecting shoes for this second annual event in May. Sandals, sneakers, and boots were made available to residents in North Point Douglas, and CBC's Santiago Arias Orozco spoke to co-organizer Shuban Faulkner.
We set up here in the park and we give away shoes for the afternoon.
Why are we doing this?
Because people need shoes. We forget how important shoes are. Shoes are, like we always just feel comfortable with shoes, and we think, oh, kids only need one pair of shoes for school, but they need a pair of shoes for indoors, for outdoors, for recess, for gym, for all sorts of different things. So people have funds to get one pair of shoes, but they need other pairs of shoes. People that are transitioning into workplaces, we've got a lot of steel-toed boots for people that are going into the workplace, people going for job interviews, people, just shoes. Shoes make you feel good, and we just have shoes for people to take and make their lives better.
Yeah, how much of a difference can it make to have a pair of shoes?
Huge. And if you walk away and think about your feet after this, shoes can make you feel really confident. So when you're going about the world, it just changes how you view the world. It makes you comfortable. And if you watch people that are walking in shoes that don't fit them, their life is not happy. It's not good. And so we've got shoes like from little kids shoe size to men's 15s. And so we have a real range of stuff that people can just take and make their lives better.
Is it a matter of safety too, like to have proper shoes? And
Yep,
like, I mean,
yep.
Walking barefoot in a city like
Walking barefoot. This summer's been horrible in terms of wet, dry. And so to have shoes to switch into or just keep your feet safe and dry, it makes a huge difference. It's a crazy thing when you think about shoes and what a difference it makes to your day.
Also for the winter.
Yep, we had lots of winter boots. We got lots of just really gently used shoes. People sometimes worry that we just have junk to give out, but people gave really high quality stuff, and we're so appreciative of that.
When you set up this morning, when did you start seeing it?
People were lined up, ready. There was like around the block, literally, which surprised the heck out of us, and just really, it's heartwarming to know that people value shoes as well and that they need them, and it makes us feel great for those people that donate it, to know that they're making a difference in the world, and for people that are taking the shoes, that their lives are different because of them.
Santiago Arias Orozco speaking to Sabu's Cubs organizer Shuban Faulkner about a shoe giveaway this past weekend. Well, time now is 6:45 here on Information Radio, and time for a little bit of music. Winnipeg's Neighbor Andy have had a pretty big year so far. They released their new album. It's called Right By You, Right By Everyone back in June. They also announced a hometown show at the Burton Cummings Theatre this fall. Now, the band says that new album of theirs is a soundtrack for a quarter-life crisis. And here's one of the tracks off that album. Here's Neighbor Andy now with This is Bannatyne and Maine on CBC Radio 1.
Sleep on the street again. Will you pick me up and bring me to my bed? If I lose my tongue before I wake up, will you tell me all the things I should have said? Don't you wait for me to call, just make your way. Snow is on the ground, a sign of change to make me change my ways. Will you be there in the morning if I run off in the night? I'm just chasing every star that's passing by. Don't you wait for me to call, just make your way. Standing at the corner of Bannatyne and Maine, waiting on my own day something I can say or have to do? Am I talking to myself if I spin another story? Is it hard for you to tell if it's the truth? Don't you wait for me to call, just make your way.
That's Neighbor Andy with Bannatyne and Maine. And yes, they are from Winnipeg, and they play at the Burton Cummings Theatre on October 24th. And I was trying to figure out which part of Bannatyne and Maine, which corner they were lying on, because either they're lying in front of the Board Game Cafe, the New Passage Cafe there, the nightclub, or the passport office. So who knows? 6:50 right now. You're listening to Information Radio. And next up here on the show, Canadian and American trade negotiators met again yesterday. We're just days away from the threatened start of new American tariffs. And the hope is they can work out a deal that satisfies the political leadership of both countries. But sources tell CBC News the two sides remain far apart despite the looming Wednesday deadline. And for a closer look at where things stand and what might happen next, we've reached Stephanie Taylor. She's a federal politics reporter for the Toronto Star. Good afternoon. Good morning. Sorry, good morning.
Good morning.
You could tell I hosted the afternoon show last week. Did you think a trade deal is possible by Wednesday?
I think, I think anything is possible, but I think it is significant that the Canadian side has signaled that they do not have an extension on the table and to not necessarily expect one. And that on top of trying to work to secure a trade deal, the Canadian side is also, I should say the federal government is also looking at putting together retaliation measures and relief packages should these tariffs from the U.S. come into effect on Wednesday. So I think the fact that the federal government is drafting up what to do, Plan B here, shows that there is a reality that a trade deal is not coming together. And as CBC and I and others have reported coming from last week, that a trade deal does not look close to happening, that the sides remain pretty far apart on some pretty key issues. And it's worth noting kind of what Canada wants at this point. Canada wants two things. They want the tariff set to come into effect on some $30 billion worth of goods at a rate of 50%, not to move ahead on Wednesday. And they also want to see some quote-unquote meaningful sectoral relief for tariffs applied to steel, aluminum, autos, and lumber. And in exchange, what the U.S. is looking for is they want concessions from Canada. They want concessions on U.S. booze being taken off, most provincial shelves. They want changes to Canada's supply management system. And they want changes from provincial procurement practices where as provinces moved away from the U.S. at the start of the trade war. But as I said, and as CBC has reported, like the trade deal looks pretty far off and the federal government is now looking at a plan B.
And Trump, he hasn't budged yet on this tariff deadline for Wednesday. But we have seen Trump extend deadlines at the last minute before. How likely is that to happen, you think?
Well, I mean, I think it is significant that the Canadian side is signaling, look, we don't have an extension yet, and you shouldn't necessarily expect one. However, even at the outset of this more intensified negotiation phase, there was a sense from the Canadian side that this is just a negotiating tactic, that, ratcheting up tariffs or looking like you're about to escalate things is a negotiating strategy to kind of push your priorities to get both parties to the table. And so what the Canadian side is signaling is that they kind of see this as a quote-unquote window of opportunity with the U.S., not just to stave off these current tariffs and deal with U.S. irritants, but to really try to push the Canadian perspective of getting some tariff relief for sectors like the four I've mentioned. And it's worth noting from the Canadian side that there's that they've kind of admit that probably getting the president off of tariffs is not going to happen or seeing him zero them out, but it's finding that sweet spot of what exactly might be a tariff level that sectors and premiers might be willing to give their buy-in for. And that's where things become really complicated because this whole situation runs the risk of pitting sector against sector, premier against premier, and exposing kind of the fault lines within the country as different leaders try to advocate for their sectors and different premiers who are being asked or being told to say, hey, if we get a deal, you got to put booze back on the shelves. And you have premiers like Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew saying, I'm open to that, but we got to get a fair trade deal, which leads to the question of what exactly constitutes a fair trade deal, a good deal, and does everyone agree on what those terms might be?
Yeah, we haven't got much clarity on that yet at this point. We have heard though from Canada's chief trade negotiator Janice Charette. She said that there's little appetite for continued negotiations if tariffs are applied. So if that happens, how would Canada respond?
I think this is where retaliation comes into effect. And even some of the voices who typically in the past say retaliation and escalation is not good for business. It's not good for the Canadian, let alone the Canadian and American economy. There is a sense that if the U.S. slaps a whole new set of tariffs with no carve-out for goods covered by the Canada, U.S., Mexico free trade agreement, Canada will have no choice. But putting that retaliation package together is easier said than done. In the past, when it's come to retaliation, there have been conversations or calls to say maybe Canada puts levies on energy exports coming from Alberta or Saskatchewan. And we've had premiers in those provinces, like Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, Alberta Premier Daniel Smith, say, hey, we don't want energy used in this way. We don't want it dragged into a trade war in terms of countermeasures, specifically when the U.S. is putting carve-outs for those. So I think putting together a retaliation package, usually the goal from the Canadian side is you want to exact kind of the most political and economic pressure. So in the past, for example, orange juice has been targeted. Orange juice, Florida, red state, right? Like that's kind of the thinking that the Canadian side will operate on here. But again, Canada's in a bit of a different landscape than what it was in the past. We see national unity, a topic of discussion, and a bit more vulnerable than it has been in the past. And this is another area where I think the federal government is going to have to look for collaboration and unanimity from premiers as to what they might be willing to accept.
Also, another move Canada has just, cut off supplies as well. I know the U.S. spared strategic imports like potash and aluminum from these new tariffs. So does Canada have the leverage or the appetite to threaten cutting off those vital supplies?
Well, I mean, United States Trade Representative Jamieson Greer has said the U.S. is not going to tolerate escalation, or they're not going to tolerate retaliation. And he has said, the U.S. is justifying these new tariffs set to come into place on Wednesday because Canada has done things like, or provinces have done things like remove U.S. booze from the shelves, change the procurement practices. He's also looked at supply management. So certainly, things look like they might ratchet up quite a bit if Canada moves ahead. And again, we haven't heard what might be on the table yet in terms of retaliation. Prime Minister Mark Carney, he's been vacationing in Italy, although his office says he's been, kept abreast of everything that's going on. We're expected to hear from him for the first time later today. And these are the type of questions that I think he's going to be asked. What's the state of play? Do we think a trade deal is possible? What might be on the table in terms of retaliation if it is not? And even kind of what his conversations with U.S. President Donald Trump have been, because the two have forged, a better working relationship than Mr. Carney's predecessor. So I think this question of retaliation is certainly going to be, prioritized as a matter of having to be looked at by the federal government the closer we get to Wednesday.
Well, Stephanie, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Stephanie Taylor is a federal politics reporter for the Toronto Star. Well, time now is 6:57. Let's take a look at news headlines with Megan Ketchison.
Well, a cross-border investigation has ended with a Manitoba man safely rescued after an alleged abduction. North Dakota State Patrol says a 31-year-old Manitoba man abducted a 37-year-old Winnipeg man yesterday and then crossed into North Dakota. Investigators say they used surveillance cameras, cell phone trackers, and license plate readers to track the suspect to Alexandria, Minnesota. And more than 500 used shoes in Winnipeg are now in the hands of new owners. Local outreach group Sabu's Cubs collected the pairs. They were handed out yesterday during a donation drive in North Point, Douglas. And I'll have more at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you.
Well, still to come here on Information Radio, a community outreach organization says the number of families seeking help has almost tripled since the spring. They say it's a sign of rising food costs. We're going to hear from them this next half hour. Also, interesting story coming up. Stay tuned. If you think saunas are just a place for some warm relaxation, well, think again. Coming up, we're going to speak to a Winnipeg sauna dancer who's representing Canada at the World Sauna Championships. That's coming up here on Information Radio. And also later this hour, stay tuned. We're going to, just after 8, we're also going to have a robot in studio, a Mars rover to be exact. It's pink. We're going to hear about the team who made it and the competition that they were in as well. So lots still to come here on Information Radio. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. We'll be back after World Report. Stay tuned.
On The Current, the deadline for President Trump's 50% tariffs is this Wednesday. And some experts say Canada needs to make more concessions during the negotiations with the U.S.
My sense is the Canadians, they want to have a more conciliatory approach, but we'll see.
How are the trade talks going, and what does this all mean for Canadian businesses? The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Mike Wise. Demand for Canadian citizenship is soaring, and it's mostly coming from the United States. New data obtained by CBC News shows citizenship applications have surged since Ottawa made changes under Bill C-3 last year. They rose by nearly 50% in April and May alone. And as Elizabeth Thompson explains, it's creating an expanding backlog and piles of paperwork.
Each request, you are going through boxes and boxes of material to find a single document sometimes.
Alyssa Hyduck is president of the Association of Canadian Archivists. Her members are being swamped by requests for genealogical records from people applying for Canadian citizenship certificates, a lot of them Americans. Hyduck says some are going back hundreds of years to prove they had a Canadian ancestor.
A lot of these records are pre-Confederation.
Under new citizenship rules that went into effect in December, anyone who can prove direct descent from a Canadian ancestor is eligible for Canadian citizenship. The certificate allows them to apply for a Canadian passport, live or work in Canada. As of May 31st, more than 6,000 people have been certified Canadian through Bill C-3. More than 17,000 others were granted it because a parent was Canadian. But that's just the tip of a very large iceberg. Currently, more than 121,000 applications are waiting for a decision. The government says that wait could take more than 2 years. The program has also had problems. In June, the government suddenly suspended the certificates issued to 100 people, saying it had concerns about the documents they submitted. Some had already moved to Canada. Most have been resolved, but NDP immigration critic Jenny Kwan wants answers.
So it really makes no sense whatsoever what's going on.
Meanwhile, Hyduck wants government funding to help deal with the flood of requests from people who want to be certified Canadian. Elizabeth Thompson, CBC News, Ottawa.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is in St. John's today for a new energy security announcement. He'll be joined by Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Tony Wakeham and Quebec Premier Christine Fréchette. The two provinces are expected to sign an updated agreement on hydropower generated on the Churchill River. The CBC's Patrick Butler has the details.
Newfoundland and Labrador premiers have sought for decades to change the 1969 Churchill Falls contract, a deal as infamous as it is ironclad, which sees Quebec buy Labrador power at bargain basement prices. The current contract doesn't run out until 2041, but Quebec is thirsty for new energy, setting the table for a new price and, in exchange, new hydropower projects in Labrador worth tens of billions. An initial MOU was signed in 2024, but Newfoundland and Labrador Premier Tony Wakeham, backed by an independent panel, launched fresh talks and promised an improved agreement after taking office last fall. Radio-Canada has confirmed a retooled deal to be unveiled today, includes wind power, and will see power generation skyrocket on the Churchill River, surpassing 12,000 megawatts. The deal will also create a dedicated transmission corridor for Newfoundland and Labrador, allowing some power to travel through Quebec and on to other buyers. Ottawa has been pushing the two provinces toward the deal, and federal tax credits are expected to ease construction costs. The new deal comes as an election looms in Quebec, and as crucial support from First Nations hasn't been secured. Patrick Butler for CBC News, St. John's.
U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law is meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today. Jared Kushner wants to change the Israeli Prime Minister's mind after Netanyahu recently rejected a U.S.-backed Gaza peace plan. Yesterday, Kushner spoke with the new Hamas leader, Khalil al-Hayya, who supports the deal. But as Crystal Gamansing tells us, there are some in Israel insisting the fight is not yet over.
And I think there is a large supportive group right across the political spectrum on Netanyahu's position that he should finish the job in Gaza.
Oliver McTurnan is the director of Forward Thinking, a conflict resolution group in the Middle East. He says U.S. envoy Jared Kushner's back-to-back meetings with the leaders of Hamas and Israel will need to establish a shared goal to make progress, because right now Benjamin Netanyahu has plenty of political incentive to hold firm.
You
On August 9th, Netanyahu rejected the U.S.-backed 15-point peace plan, saying Israel Defense Forces will not carry out any withdrawal until Hamas is disarmed. Hamas agreed to turn over its heavy weapons to U.S.-backed Palestinian administrators for storage. Israel is demanding all weapons be surrendered and destroyed before leaving the territory. Kushner's visit comes on the heels of new and inflammatory comments from Government Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. On a podcast, he said he thought, quote, targeted assassination should be carried out in Gaza, taking down 30 to 40 every night, not just those who pose an immediate threat. There are people there who are not worthy of life. It's expected the comments and the lack of movement on the peace deal will result in the U.S. putting political pressure on Israel's prime minister. But the visit may not change anything. Israelis go to the polls in October, and security is a key issue. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
Actress Hayden Panettiere has died. The 36-year-old starred in the hit TV series Nashville and Heroes, but she began her career at just 8 months old. Panettiere described her difficult introduction to Hollywood to CBS back in May.
Every moment on set, I didn't care about anybody else's opinion but my mom's. Yeah. Because I knew that if she was unhappy with my performance in any way, that the rest of the day was going to be ruined.
Yes.
It was going to be a very bad day.
Panettiere had been promoting her book, This Is Me, A Reckoning. In it, she describes her struggles with postpartum depression and addiction. The actress would have turned 37 on Friday. No cause of death has been announced. Opening statements begin today in the Tupac Shakur murder trial. The rapper was shot and killed in Las Vegas nearly 30 years ago. 63-year-old Dwayne Davis is charged with his murder based on his own memoir. Reporter Steve Futterman has the latest from Las Vegas.
For nearly 3 decades, it's been one of the most talked about unsolved murders. Today, Dwayne Davis, a former powerful gang leader, goes on trial. He isn't accused of pulling the trigger, but rather putting together all the elements to make sure it happened. The prosecution's key evidence is Davis's own words from his 2019 memoir and interviews. Davis admits supplying the gun used in the attack and being in the car that pulled up alongside Shakur. Legal analyst Caroline Polisi.
He really spoke pretty openly about his involvement in this alleged murder, and that is now coming back to haunt him.
The defense claims that Davis was embellishing and fabricating, hoping to increase sales of his book. And Davis now also says he wasn't even in Las Vegas the night of the killing. A cousin of Shakur, William Lassane, believes Davis is responsible.
He admitted his role in the murder of Tupac Shakur. Continuously, repeatedly, he was screaming it out publicly. So the guilt lies with what he said himself.
The trial is expected to last 4 to 5 weeks, and there will be TV cameras in the courtroom. Steve Futterman, CBC News, Las Vegas.
Police in Sicily are searching for a gang believed to have stolen 4 works by Renaissance master Antonello de Messina. They were taken from a museum in his hometown of Messina on Friday. Investigators suspect the paintings may still be hidden on the island and that the robbery was carried out for a buyer who had already been lined up. Megan Williams has the latest.
Police in Sicily are searching ferries, ports and roads out of the city of Messina, saying the stolen works may still be hidden somewhere on the southern Italian island. The thieves took 3 panels from Antonella da Messina's Politico di San Gregorio, a late 15th century altarpiece, and a small double-sided painting of the Madonna and Child on one side with Christ on the other. Police believe at least 4 people were involved in the heist and are treating it as a theft to order. Art experts say paintings this famous are essentially impossible to sell openly. There are also questions about how the thieves got away with it and whether they had inside help. Museum director Marisa Mercurio says the alarm and security systems were fully operational with guards on duty. She says police later found 2 other panels abandoned outside the museum, and investigators are studying surveillance video to try to figure out what interrupted the thieves. For Messina, the loss is deeply personal. Antonello was born in the city nearly 600 years ago, and one of the stolen works was the only surviving painting of his never to have left his hometown. Culture councillor Enzo Caruso says the city is stunned, calling the theft a blow to the heart. Megan Williams, CBC News, Pistoia.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Mike Wise. This is CBC News.
Good afternoon, good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. Happy Monday morning. Good to be with you. In for a slightly cooler day and even a chance of thunderstorms, actually twice during the day. We'll get the details just ahead here. Coming up this hour on the show, some Winnipeggers are having to choose between paying bills or eating food. It's a decision no family wants to make. We're going to hear from them later in the show. Also, if you don't feel comfortable with online banking, you'll want to stay tuned for a story we've got coming up after 7:30. A U of M student is helping people practice virtual banking in hopes of preventing scams and fraud. So we'll hear what they're up to. But up first on the show, a Winnipeg dancer will be debuting her hot and steamy dance routine in Europe next week, but it's not in the way you're thinking. We're going to talk to her about how she's been practicing for the World Sauna Championships. That's coming up right here on Information Radio. But first, though, let's check in with Megan Ketchison with a look at news headlines. Hi.
Hi. Well, Northern Manitobans are sounding the alarm about a lack of veterinary care. Just one full-time veterinary clinic operates in the region, and Thompson hasn't had a full-time vet since 2024. That means pet owners are having to drive over 4 hours for appointments to get health checks, and some people's pets are dying before they can get to see the vet. And more than 500 used shoes in Winnipeg are now in the hands of new owners. Local outreach group Sabu's Cubs collected the pairs. They were handed out yesterday during a donation drive in the North Point Douglas area. And we'll have more coming up at 7:30.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you.
The time now is 7:11. Let's just check in with your weather real quick. Here in Winnipeg, we're sitting at 16 right now, warming up to 23 today here in the city. This morning, there's about a 30% chance of showers or even thunder showers. And then throughout the day, it's going to clear up a little bit. But then by the evening, we might see another chance of showers or thunder showers, but another 30% chance or so. It's going down to 10 overnight and then warming up to 23. And it's a very similar case right across southern Manitoba as well. And then up in Thompson, it is 8 right now. You're going to be warming up to 14. You also have about a 60% chance of showers today as well, and then throughout the day and overnight. Well, let's check in now with Sierra Sanders, who's in with a look at your commute. Hi.
Hi, Corey. The commute has been pretty quiet so far. I haven't gotten any calls on the commuter line. So to me, it sounds like things are moving along smoothly out there at the moment. Not hearing about any major backups or situations. But if you are seeing any major backups or situations that are popping up on your commute, no matter how you are getting around, I would love to hear from you, whether you are here in Winnipeg or anywhere else in the province. You can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number's 204-788-3093.
Well, up next on the show, for many people, saunas are a place of relaxation and rejuvenation. But for my next guest, they can also be a steam-filled venue for dance performances, complete with lights, music, and extravagant costumes. Quincy Hebert is an Aufguss master from Winnipeg, and she's heading to the Netherlands later this month to compete in the playoffs for the World Sauna Championships. Hi there.
Hi.
So, as I said there, you're an Aufguss master, but what actually, for people for the uninitiated, what is Aufguss?
So Aufguss comes from the German word of infusion or steam on. We take snowballs with pure essential oils, we place them on the hot sauna rocks, and then we use our towel and our fan to move that aromatic steam around the sauna to music. And then Show Aufguss takes it a step further, where we create a story a little bit like theater, And we tell a story with the oils and the music that we choose. And then we do a little bit of acting as well to really take people into the story and immerse themselves in a full sensory experience.
So how does one get into Aufguss? So what's your story?
So I have 17 years of dancing experience, and it got to a certain point where I just felt like I wanted a challenge. I wanted to try something new, and my mom actually found the job posting at Thermea. And so I was like, you know what? That sounds like a good challenge. And I just fell in love with how much creative freedom we have and the oils, and then the community. Everyone's just so nice and so kind, and it's a really great place to find your style and connect with other people.
And how big of a transition was it for you from dancer to dancing in a sauna? So not only are you dealing with heat, but you're managing stuff. You're doing oils. You're doing. You got the towel. I actually brought a towel here. Can you just like hold it up for the camera here, and then just maybe we'll describe it for radio listeners here.
This is a newer towel, but yeah, I have a slightly smaller towel than some Aufguss masters do, but all of our towels are sewn. So it's like a little circle, but we hold it like this, and then we do motions to move that air. And the classic grip technique is 2 fingers, but you could hold it like with your thumb here.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, and this is
right.
my tool of
So
choice.
one side of it is sewn together. Is that just for like aerodynamic?
Yeah, it's really
reasons?
you could use it open. I prefer closed. It's better for when I'm doing tricks.
Yeah.
So if I'm tossing it in the air, I can catch it and I know where to catch it.
Right. So are you pretentious about towels now? Like, ooh, I could totally Aufguss this one, but
Yes,
I
that
can't.
is what my after showers have turned into. It's just bath towels practicing.
That's great. And, and you also bring in, you have oil as well that you also usually use, right?
Just an example of an oil here. It's Bulgarian lavender.
Okay.
And then we have a dosing chart here. So it tells us what type of note is it. It's a top note, middle note, or base note. So that will decide where we put it in our round of infusion. So if it's top note, we'll use it first.
Okay.
Because it'll come quickly, but then leave faster. And then versus a base note, it'll take longer to diffuse, but then stay in the air for longer.
Mm-hmm.
And then the strength is at the bottom there. There we go.
Showing to the camera there. So just like small bottle oil. So then when you're competing, so I guess when you're being judged, you're going to Netherlands.
Yes.
You're being judged. And so you're being judged for performance, but are they taking scents and stuff like that into account as well?
They account for lots of things. Professionalism. So do you know where everything is? Your heat distribution, your sanitation. So are you wiping away your sweat in between the rounds? Your theme, your oils. So do your oils relate to your story? And your musicality. So are you moving on beat? And are you listening to the music, but also paying attention to the audience members and making sure everyone's safety is taken into account?
And how challenging is the heat factor with all? And how big of an adjustment was that? Going
That
from
was a
dancer
huge
to heat?
adjustment. I remember my first time stepping into a sauna just as an audience member. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I have to perform in this. Yeah. And then I found that as I got better, I stopped thinking about the heat. I just started losing myself in the music like I did with dance. So it was more seamless than I thought.
Did you have to do some training though, like just to really kind of work up your endurance?
Yes. We've actually had Aufguss masters sent in from Europe to help train us and work on our technique.
What does that look like?
It looks like, well, usually getting into a studio and then correcting our grip, adjusting like our arm movements, because we do a lot of repetitive arm movements, making sure that we're preserving our muscles and making sure that we can do this job for longer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of the competitive side of it, how did you get into that? Was there like regionals, and then now you're going to the Netherlands? How does that work?
Yeah. So every year, Thermea hosts the Canadian Aufguss Show competition. And so I get to meet up with all of my friends from around the country, and then we show our pieces. Judges come in, they give us a score, and then the second place people get to go to the playoffs, and everyone from around the world that got second place in their country's championship gets to go to the playoffs. I'll be going to the playoffs just for my solo, but then I'll already be going to the World Masters. So the finals, where every first place person is, because I won with my Ofcus partner, Stedroy. So we did a duo competition and we won first place for that.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, so you're competing in two different categories.
I'm going to two. So I'll be going to Netherlands and then Germany right afterwards in September.
Wow, that is wild. And then, and tell me a little bit about your performance itself, because like you said, there's a story element to it. What's the story you're telling?
The story that I've taken from, it's a piece from Greek mythology, Icarus, the boy who flew too close to the sun. And I love Greek mythology, so I wanted to bring that story to life. I have like a set of wings that move behind my back, and then it's just basically tells the story of how he wants to be closer to the sun and be free, and then his father warns him that his wings are going to melt and that he shouldn't do this, but he does it anyway, and then he free falls from the sky. Yeah.
That's cool. And why take that inspiration?
There's something I think very relatable about everyone wanting to take risks in their life, to try something out for the first time, and then sometimes that doesn't always work out, and having to process that within yourself and learn from it and not let it destroy you. I think that's something that's oddly relatable, even though it's taken from Greek mythology. But I also just love Greek mythology.
Like taking the risk of, taking a job to become an Ofcos sauna dancer.
Yeah, not knowing anything about it.
Some parallels there, I'm sure you could draw.
Absolutely.
And what's the competitive vibes like? How does it get like pretty intense, the competition?
I'd say, everyone is just so skilled. Like, you watch other people's sessions and you're just like, whoa. And I'm sure it's even going to be taken up a notch when I'm in Germany, because there's people that have been doing this way longer than me. But competition-wise, everyone's just so friendly. We're competing, but it's also family. I know that in the European competitions, they have a chant. They're like, 1, 2, 3, Ofgus, 1, 2, 3, family.
Oh, that's nice.
And they start every session like that.
Do the Finns clean up every year, though? Because they are the sauna people.
I feel like they probably do. There's a solid chance that they rock. Absolutely.
Well, congratulations on making it that far. Super interesting what you're doing, and all the best in the competition. We'll have to have you back on after to tell us how it goes.
Yeah, I'd love that.
We'll send you good vibes here from Manitoba.
Thank you. I'm happy to represent.
Well, that is Quincy Hebert, an Aufguss master. She's representing Canada in the singles competition at the World Sauna Playoffs, as well as the doubles as well at the Netherlands and Germany later this month, and then in September. Now, we couldn't help it. This is Wolfpack with Sauna on CBC Radio 1. That's Wolfpack and Sauna here on CBC Radio 1. Just scat souling, nothing to do with saunas. Time now is 7:25 here, and you're listening to CBC Radio 1. And time now for Morning Sports with Scott Regehr. Hello.
Hey, Corey.
So let's start with flag football, where Canada will have not just one, but two teams competing at the Olympics.
Yeah, with this country's women and men booking spots at the next Summer Games after strong showings at the World Championships in Germany. Led by former CFLer Michael O'Connor, the men beat Mexico yesterday in overtime, securing the bronze medal, and because it was a top three finish, an Olympic berth as well. Meanwhile, the women, Corey, will be going to LA as world champions. They upset the top-ranked Americans yesterday, with Caroline Moquin-Joubert scoring one of the touchdowns. Here she is.
I don't think we'll be sleeping much over the next few nights. It's a feeling of sheer joy. Winning this medal represents the culmination of all of the hard work we put in over the past year. It might sound cheesy, but we really are like sisters. We worked hard and smashed through every barrier in our path. We're wearing gold around our necks today because of that.
Saint-Lambert, Quebec's Caroline Moquin-Joubert. Of the 24 players on Canada's men's and women's teams, Corey, 20 of them are from Quebec. That province built a deep, structured pipeline through its school and collegiate sports systems decades before the rest of the country did. Flag football will make its Olympic debut in Los Angeles, and one of the players that could well suit up for Canada in LA is the former Bison's quarterback and now a wide receiver with Team Canada in flag football, Jackson Tuchinski. Should be lots of fun.
I'll have to keep an eye on that. Thanks. Next up here, let's turn to baseball now, where the Blue Jays' pursuit of a playoff spot hit a speed bump.
Yeah, the Yankees put up that speed bump, specifically Ben Rice. The New York Slugger hit a 2-run homer in extra innings, making the difference yesterday. It prevented the Jays from sweeping the series. The Toronto team has today off, and a guy who probably needs the break more than anyone is Vladdy Guerrero Jr., Corey. He's been placed on the injured list after suffering a head injury while sliding into third base. Manager John Schneider was asked whether, since Toronto was in a must-win part of their season, whether it was a difficult decision placing Vladdy on the list.
Listening to the doctors and everything that goes into all the protocol, they just kind of, checked enough boxes for an IL stint. So he kind of felt a little bit worse than he did yesterday, which is to be expected after you go home and sleep. So hopefully it's a minimal stay. Quad, something at this point in the year you're fine with, but you're talking about league-mandated concussion. Yeah, he didn't push back. You got to be careful with this.
And Schneider knows all too well about concussions, Corey. They did derail his playing career. As for the Jays, they are just one game out of a wild card spot now, so they'll be hoping the Orioles, their team they are trying to track down for that wild card spot, do not fare well tonight.
And finally here, there's sad news away from the diamond.
There is. Legendary pitcher Tommy John passed away over the weekend at age 83. On the mound, John won close to 300 games. Most of them, incredibly enough, came after he tore a ligament in his elbow that should have ended his career. But at age 31, he wanted to keep playing, and so he put his faith in LA Dodgers team physician Frank Jobe. In a groundbreaking procedure, Jobe took a ligament from John's non-throwing forearm and repaired his pitching elbow. He went on to pitch a dozen more seasons as a result. Yankees manager Aaron Boone shared his thoughts on Tommy John.
I hope people remember, how outstanding his career was, and not just being named for the injury that, obviously we know very well now. He came over in '82 to the Angels when my dad was there. I can see his wind-up, one of my favorite wind-ups to imitate. But a great career and obviously a lasting legacy.
According to the American Medical Association, around 35% of active Major League pitchers have undergone Tommy John surgery, including Cy Young Award winners Chris Sale, Justin Verlander, and Tariq Skubal. Quite a legacy, both on and away from the diamond, when you talk about Tommy John.
Thank you very much, Scott.
You bet.
That is Scott Regehr at your CBC Sports desk. Well, stay tuned here. Still to come, we're speaking to a U of M student helping seniors get more comfortable with online banking. He's actually developed a website that lets users practice sending e-transfers, paying bills, and navigating digital accounts. That conversation coming up after your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg at 7:30. Mostly cloudy and 16 at the Forks. Mix of sun and cloud today. Chance of showers and a possible thunderstorm. A high of 23. One community organization says demand for food programs is soaring as Manitobans struggle to afford groceries and put food on the table. It comes as the province continues to have one of the highest food inflation rates in Canada. The CBC's Rosanna Hempel reports.
I don't have money to buy food. That's why I'm here.
That's Eleanor Caswell. She's a retired senior, picking up fresh produce in Elmwood in Winnipeg. A community organization is offering leftover and rescued food for free.
It carries me so that I don't have to go without, because otherwise I am going without.
And she says that happens at least once a month. Lalani Esteban Villarba is executive director of the Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation. She says demand for all of their food programs has soared. One has even tripled since the spring.
It's sad because it means that there's a lot of people looking for food and who can't afford groceries.
Data from StatsCan shows Manitoba nearly tied for the highest food inflation in Canada in June at 5%. The prairie provinces also saw the highest inflation for fresh vegetables at more than 10%. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg man has been rescued in the U.S. after an alleged abduction. North Dakota State Patrol reports a 31-year-old Manitoba man was arrested after he allegedly abducted a 37-year-old man from Winnipeg on Saturday. They crossed into across the Canada-U.S. border into North Dakota. Investigators say they used surveillance cameras, cell phone trackers, and license plate readers. They tracked the suspect to a vehicle in Alexandria, Minnesota. Police say the victim managed to break free and run to a convenience store. The suspect was arrested shortly afterwards, and the investigation continues. Northern Manitobans are sounding the alarm about a lack of veterinary care. Just one full-time veterinary clinic operates in the region, and Thompson has not had a full-time vet since 2024. That means pet owners are having to drive over 4 hours for appointments and health checks. Alana Salter's dog, Jerica, became ill in May before she could receive any emergency care in Thompson. She got an appointment in the paw, but Jerica died before the vet could see her. Salter says the level of vet care in the area causes serious issues.
This is an ongoing issue. It's not going away. We don't have the luxury of calling another veterinary clinic on the other side of the city and maybe making that 30, 45 minute to an hour drive. For us, it's a lot more detrimental to the health of our animals not to have these veterinary services readily accessible.
Temporary vets come to the northern city for a few days each month. More than 500 used shoes in Winnipeg are now in the hands of new owners. Local outreach group Sabu's Cubs collected the pairs. They were handed out yesterday during a donation drive in North Point, Douglas. Kyle Kostiak volunteers for the group. He says these clothing items can make a difference for many vulnerable people in the city.
Every day you can find someone that needs a pair of shoes. It's not hard. You don't even really have to look. You'll just see it everywhere. Right? Unfortunately, our city's dealing with addictions and they're dealing with mental health issues, right? And people get their shoes wet and everything else that are unsheltered.
He says the free shoes are also important for families living in poverty, especially those with children starting the new school year soon. In international news, if those 50% tariffs do kick in on Wednesday, they will hit some provinces and some sectors harder than others, including the makers of textiles and clothing. Alexander Silberman tells us why tens of thousands of jobs are at stake.
Textiles and clothing made in Canada, currently duty-free under CUSMA, are now targeted under a range of goods set to get hit with U.S. tariffs on August 19th. Even just the possibility of tariffs is already hurting the industry. Canada's textile sector employs about 100,000 people, according to the Industry Association, with the bulk of jobs in fashion and clothing, based in Quebec and Ontario. The association representing Montreal's fashion industry says clothing companies would be especially hard hit.
It will have an immediate impact.
4 in 5 pieces of clothing cut and sewn in Canada head south of the border. And in recent years, small and medium-sized manufacturers have brought production back to Canada to get duty-free access to the American market. Alexander Silverman, CBC News, Montreal.
And a Winnipeg basketball coach says the Sea Bears championship win is sure to inspire players of all ages. Emery Bassi is with the Attack basketball program, and he was taking part in a community-run tournament over the weekend. He says Winnipeg's championship gives young players something extra to work towards.
To have like pros from Winnipeg on the team, and then to see them win it, I think it's really inspiring, right? Like the next generation, like you'll see guys behind me. These guys are the next generation, like they're up next, and like these guys get to be like right courtside with those guys to watch them win.
Massey says a lot of people in his generation went pro overseas, but didn't have the chance to see professional ball in the Manitoba capital. And that's the news from Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you.
That is Megan Kedgeson at your CBC News Desk. I'm Corey Funk in for Marcy Marcusa. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1. Well, let's take a look at your forecast for the next day or so. Right now in Winnipeg, we're sitting at 16. It's warming up to 23 today. Now, this morning, there is about a 30% chance of showers or even thunder showers today, and then going to kind of clear up a bit throughout the day. But then by the evening, there's another chance of showers or thunder showers in the late afternoon, evening as well. About a 30% chance, dipping down to 10 overnight, and then tomorrow warming up to 23 with a mix of sun and cloud. Very similar forecast in Brandon, though your chances of thunderstorms or showers are a bit higher. 60% chance of showers this morning, as well as 60% chance of showers this afternoon and evening. 12 right now in Brandon, warming up to 22 today. Steinbach, you're sitting at 14. You are warming up to 24 with a 60% chance of showers this morning, and then a 30% chance of showers this evening. And Thompson right now, you're sitting at 8 you are warming up to just 14 today with a 60% chance of showers. Going down to 7 overnight also, chance of showers, and warming up tomorrow to 16 with a mix of sun and cloud. Well, let's check in now with our studio director, Sierra Sanders, who's in with a look at your commute. Hi.
Hi, Corey. It's been pretty quiet commute this morning on this Monday morning on the show, which I guess is a good sign because it sounds like things are moving along pretty smoothly out there. But I do want to let folks know about a pretty substantial closure that will be happening all week on Plessis Road. So from today until August 21st, which is this Friday, there's a full closure of all northbound and southbound lanes between Camille Sis Street and Autumn Way for rail crossing construction and maintenance. So travel will be temporarily restored in both directions from Fermor Avenue to the CN terminal or Autumn Way there. So a pretty big closure there that you want to keep in mind, and probably should find an alternate route for the week if that is on your drive. But other than that, I'm not hearing about any major situations or backups. But if that does change, no matter how you are getting around or wherever you are here in the province, I'd love to hear from you. So give me a call on that CBC commuter line. The number to call is 204-788-3093.
Thank you very much, Sierra. That is Sierra Sanders, the CBC studio director. Well, up next on the show, it can be a walk in the park for some, but a nightmare for others. I'm talking about online banking. One University of Manitoba student wants people to be more comfortable with doing it. Mehran Hussein is a master's student in the Department of Computer Science, and he's developed a website that lets users practice sending e-transfers, paying bills, navigating digital accounts. It's called BankBox, and he's hosting free in-person workshops for the platform today and later this week. And Mehran joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So just tell us about this website. How does it work?
So BankBox is a free online practice tool. So you can go to the website. It supports practice interfaces for the big 5 Canadian banks. So it has CIBC, TD, RBC, BMO, and Scotiabank. So you can just go, and there are practice simulated interfaces for those. So you can practice on an interface that actually looks like your actual bank.
That's surprising to me. It looks exactly like it. Like it was like, oh, am I in an RBC account right now? You're almost kind of like, oh, am I spending money?
Yeah, we really wanted to look similar so that how you practice on this actually translates to your actual account as well.
It's really smart. And what are the kind of things you can do in those simulated accounts?
So there's a number of tasks. You can do e-transfers, you can do bill payments, you can change your account settings, so like your account passwords, transfer money between accounts. So I think it covers like the range of basic tasks that you need from the day to day.
And where did the idea for this come from?
So my supervisor, Dr. Celine Latulip, does a lot of research with older adults, and we were thinking of a technology support tool that's almost necessary. So to spend money, keeping control of your financial independence is really important. And yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people need support with. So we thought, okay, this is something that people can do, practice and really build confidence, because right now the support tools provided by banks don't really let you get that hands-on experience.
Were you surprised when your supervisor brought this idea up that there wasn't actually already something like this out there?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the banks do provide videos, but that's not really great for retaining information, right? When you actually do it yourself, you can learn better. And also when you do it yourself, if you do it on a real interface, there's this fear that, okay, I might send my money to the wrong person. So it makes sense that there would be something for practice only. So yeah, I definitely think this is something that should be there, that can help people actually, get that experience.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned this is something that older adults could benefit from, but do you see any other applications for these kind of practice bank interfaces?
Yeah, for sure. I think it can be useful for anyone who's new to Canadian banking, right? So someone who came to Canada for the first time, maybe they're not familiar with e-transfers or whatever the interfaces look like. It could be useful for someone who may have been reliant on in-person banking. Bank branches are closing more these days, so it's always good to have this additional skill set.
And I actually understand you've already tested this app. So who did you test it on?
So we ran 12 user studies with older adult participants, and we ran those studies throughout this year, and we got a lot of feedback. And yeah, now we're trying to test it in like a workshop within a group of people.
And what was the feedback like from those 12 studies?
The feedback was mostly very positive. Like everyone felt that this is something that should be offered by banks or just be available to anyone who's new to banking, really.
And did the banks get on board? Like, because you actually had to physically you copy their interfaces. Did you have to get like permissions from them to pull this off, or are you just able to kind of do that? How does that work?
So we've made sure not to use any trademark logos or anything. So yeah, we basically just looked at the existing interface and made it look as similar as possible. But yeah, definitely, if the banks do it themselves, that would be great. Like I feel like that would definitely reach more people, and yeah.
And in terms of like privacy, safety on the website, how does that work to make sure people feel like the practicing that they're doing is all safe and secure?
Yeah, well, it's hosted on University of Manitoba servers, so you can check that on the URL. And also, at no point during the experience do you have to enter any of your own financial information, and the information you're putting in there is also not recorded anywhere. So really, it's just like a toy almost that it's like just pretend banking.
And we've been showing a screenshot of it, just if people are wondering. That's the CIBC practice that we've been showing on screen for folks. So what are your hopes for the future of this tool? You're saying you hope that banks just do it themselves, but this tool itself, could you see it growing in terms of who uses it or its application at all?
Yeah, for sure. I think anyone who needs help with technology. We've also had attention from occupational therapists, social workers as well. So yeah, I think the use case can be quite broad, and maybe we can incorporate like credit unions and maybe even beyond just online banking, right? There's lots of new tech coming out with different kinds of interfaces, and which can be pretty intimidating to learn. So it's exciting to see where this could go.
And we mentioned before you'll be hosting workshops for BankBox this week. So if people are interested, how can they sign up?
Yeah, so they can just email us at bankbox@umanitoba.ca.
Okay, and when are those sessions? Neil, we'll let people know when those sessions are right now. I got the info for you for folks right there. So Mehran, thank you very much for your time this morning, and all the best with the project.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Mehran Hussain is a master's student at the University of Manitoba. He's hosting workshops for BankBox this week. It'll be taking place today at the Fort Garry Library starting at 1 p.m. and the Bill and Helen Norrie Library, that's the one just right outside of Pan Am Pool there, this Wednesday at 1 p.m. as well. As you mentioned, you can just email in BankBox at umanitoba.ca. If you actually want to check out the website yourself just to have a look at it, here it is. This is the website. I'll say it twice for folks just so they can hear it twice. It's bankbox.cs.umanitoba.ca. It's bankbox.cs.umanitoba.ca. Well, time now is 7:46 here. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. And next up here on the show, a high-altitude research aircraft from NASA was prowling the skies over BC's interior recently. The plane was looking at the atmospheric impacts of the massive Pear Lake wildfire burning in the Clinton area. Specifically, it was gathering information about cloud formations known as pyrocumulus nimbus clouds. The CBC's Joseph Otu spoke with David Peterson, a meteorologist with the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory.
Yeah, so pyrocumulonimbus is just a technical term for a large storm generated directly by a wildfire. And these storms can grow to heights of 10, 12, even 15 kilometers in the atmosphere. They look very dark. They're like a giant chimney, if you will, pushing smoke upwards, and they also create hazards near the ground. Would you believe that the amount of smoke pushed upward through one of these pyrocumulonimbus can rival the size and scope of a volcanic plume in the atmosphere? So that's smoke from wildfires reaching the level of the atmosphere we call the stratosphere. That's above jet aircraft cruising altitudes. And actually, British Columbia, Canada is the sort of the epicenter for some of the biggest events we've seen in history. So back in 2017, there was an event of multiple storms on the same night that pushed so much smoke into the stratosphere, it lasted for almost a year, traveled around the entire northern hemisphere. Yeah, so you can think of the ER2 as basically a steerable satellite. So it's flying up really high in the atmosphere above the weather, and we can kind of just have it orbit back and forth over a fire. So you can imagine now you're getting a view of that fire every 15, 20 minutes, and so that produces a really high resolution view of how the fire is spreading, what areas are getting hotter and cooler, how does that relate to the smoke plumes that are being generated. So there's radars that can look at the plume dimensions and sort of the vertical motion within them. There's instruments that can look at lightning behavior. So it's a very full set of payload there that can get at every dimension of this fire-generated phenomenon. In the US, at least, we've had many experiments focused on other traditional severe weather. So these are supercell thunderstorms that produce tornadoes, and there have been many experiments and even movies that have come out with that sort of thing. But on the fire side of things, very, very little is known. This is the first really detailed experiment to get at fire-generated severe weather and focus specifically on the storms that fires are generating. From the ER2, that data set of getting the fire every 15 minutes, not only will that help us understand which fires are producing these storms, but also people who are trying to better predict fire spread can use that to evaluate their models. And that's just one piece. There's the component of being able to measure what's coming directly out of these clouds. So the aircraft that's here in Colorado actually flies into the tops, and we've done this a few times, looking at how the smoke changes as it's processed through a cloud so that we can better predict the smoke transport piece of this. So I've been interested in the weather since I was a kid, and so I've grown up basically in that area. But then when I got into grad school, I was more involved in looking at fire from space using satellites. That's basically how we view fire from space. And then I realized that if fires are generating thunderstorms, it's kind of a way to bring that all together. And it just so happened that happened at a time where we were having this sort of influx of large fire-generated weather events that have created all of these sort of impacts that have led to bigger questions, but also then more and more need for a field experiment like this.
David Peterson is a meteorologist at the U.S. Naval Research Laboratory in Broomfield, Colorado. He was talking about a high-altitude research aircraft from NASA that flew over British Columbia's wildfires a little over a week ago.
I'm Chelsea Kemp, your local reporter for CBC Manitoba in Brandon.
You're listening to CBC Radio 1.
Well, for many Manitobans, summer means more time outside, trips, barbecues, but for some families, it means scrambling for affordable food. Over the past year, Manitoba has tied for the highest inflation rate in Canada at 4.3%, and it's taking a toll. CBC's Jim Agapito joins us for a snapshot of what's happening in our city. Hi there, Jim.
Hello.
So why did you want to start looking into this?
Well, Corey, one of our producers noticed some posts on a Winnipeg parents Facebook group where people were asking for help to buy food for their families. So I wanted to get a sense of what was happening, so I called Brandy Beaubier, the co-founder of Community Helpers Unite. Now, they are a nonprofit organization that helps address food scarcity issues in Winnipeg by rescuing food that would otherwise go in the dumpster. She says this is a huge issue right now.
There has been a huge uptick in not only marginalized individuals, but everyday middle-class individuals who are accessing food banks and emergency food support programs because groceries have become unaffordable. Rent has gone up, utilities have gone up, car payment insurance, things like that. Bank rates have all gone up, credit rates have all gone up as well, and now food's also gone up, but unfortunately that's the last thing that anybody thinks or talks about. Meanwhile, it's one of the first things that we need. And so food gets left to the last thing that we're going to take care of and try and fit into our budget. So a lot of people are fitting everything else into their budget barely and are then reaching out to food banks and food resources to maintain their lives.
And I also reached out to Harvest Manitoba to hear what food bank numbers look like. In April of this year, the most recent month they have data for, Harvest Manitoba served nearly 27,000 households, and that's up by 3,000 compared to last year. Now, other than food banks, there are programs like the one at Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation in Elmwood. They run a food rescue program for people in need. Here's what Executive Director Leilani Esteban Villarba said about what they're seeing these days when they hand out food.
What we've seen initially when we first started, we were getting maybe 3 to 4 pallets from our partners. We were able to get rid of that within like half an hour to an hour. Nowadays, these last couple of months, we've been getting 6 to 8 pallets, almost double. And that has been going as quickly as 45 minutes.
Is it safe to say you're seeing an uptick of people in need for food?
100%.
Wow. You also went down to the Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation on a day when they give out food. What did you see?
Well, I arrived about an hour early before the program started, and there was more than 100 people lined up with more filing in the door. Now, people like Sean Morton was there with his partner, a young child.
As it goes for everybody, I suppose it gets kind of short on the food. Kind of gets expensive after time. Even budgeting gets tight, because well, like I said, making sure he eats all good, he's got everything that he needs all the time, then, you kind of have to budget to what is proper for yourself, even, if it's just living, affording housing, or if you have to have a good meal. These programs really help out.
And Sean wasn't the only person struggling. Here's what Eleanor Caswell told me.
I am retired. That's why I'm here. Because I don't have money to buy food. I mainly buy a few meats, hamburgers, wieners, sometimes chicken. That's what we get for meat, and the rest is what I get from food banks or here or wherever I can get it. It's getting worse and worse. Mainly by the end of the first week after I get paid, we end up with $10, $15 for the rest of the month.
Wow. So what do the people volunteering at the Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation think of what they're seeing? I imagine, there's lots of different stories.
Yeah, there are. And I did have a chance to speak to Olga Agorenko, who is a volunteer, but she has relied on getting food herself in the past when money is tight. She says the need for food in Winnipeg is eye-opening.
What I see here is the actual need in the community. It's crazy. I think that says a lot. That number is very high. You see more and more every week. It seems like it's getting more and more people. Is the word getting bigger out there, or is the need getting bigger? And I believe it's the need that is getting bigger, and people are using this as a rescue. I think that says a lot, because you're now choosing, am I going to eat today, or am I rather going to pay my water bill? And unfortunately, what are we left to? We have to pay our bills first, right? and then maybe come here to get a little bit of help,
Well, as you heard her say there, people got to cover their basic expenses, and sometimes food is the last thing, they think of, just because so many expenses out there. So do people you spoke to always get enough to eat?
Well, Corey, unfortunately, no, they don't. There's only so much donated food to go around, and sometimes people do have to go without. Here's retiree Eleanor Caswell, Father Sean Morton, and volunteer Olga Agaranku once again.
If we don't get, we don't eat.
And has that happened with, in the last year, would you say?
How about the last month? Nearly every month.
There's a few bills that are even overdue right now. What am I supposed to do about it, I really have to pick and choose. It's something everyone has to have, really,
I do make hard decisions in the grocery store where I decide to buy strawberries today or oranges today, which is very unfortunate. I never thought in my life that I will get to that point where I have to choose, am I going to buy this for my family today or this? Unfortunately, inflation doesn't let me do that. It's scary. As a mom, I have 2 little kids and they love food. It is very scary for me, like how long can we as a family go like this with one grocery bag, like $50, $60, and you grab like 4 items. Like it's just gonna get worse. And I think if nothing is changing soon, what are we gonna feed our kids?
Is there anything Manitobans can do to help?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Corey, because Brandy Bobier from Community Helpers Unite says giving money to organizations that help with food security is a good start. And if you can't do that,
volunteer time is always good because as an organization for us, when we have volunteers come out, they always walk out with food. Whether that's volunteers at our warehouse that are sorting donations and things, we make everybody take food home with them as well. So that way, if we're able to provide an honorarium for regular recurring volunteers, we can. And if not, at least we're able to give them food for their fridge.
Thanks for this, Jim.
You're welcome.
I'm Agapito, and to read and see more about this, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Well, let's check in now with Megan Ketchison with a look at news headlines. Oh, I think Megan is still away right now. Let's just check with Megan now with a look at news headlines.
Good morning. Well, a donation drive brought hundreds of used shoes to one of the city's poorest neighborhoods. Families in North Point Douglas got to pick from over 500 pairs yesterday. Local outreach group Sabu's Cubs hosted the event. An organizer says the shoes are often taken for granted, but for the city's most vulnerable, having more than one can be a luxury. And Northern Manitobans are sounding the alarm about a lack of veterinary care. Just one full-time veterinary clinic operates in the region. And we'll have more at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Megan. As for your commute right now, very quiet overall, though do keep in mind that there is a full closure of all northbound and southbound lanes of Plessis Road between Camille Sis Street and Autumn Way for rail crossing construction, and that's expected to last until August 21st. So, travel will be restored in both directions from Fermor Avenue to the CN Terminal / Autumn Way, says the city. So keep an eye out for that. Other than that, pretty quiet commute. You can call Sierra if you do see something, though. 204-788-3093. Still to come, University of Manitoba robotics team was in Drumheller earlier this month, competing in the Canadian International Rover Challenge. That robot, is going to join us in studio with the team. Stay tuned for that. That's coming up after World Report. I'm Corey Funk, and for Marcy Marcusa. See you then.
Today on Q.
Sindhu V didn't start out in comedy. She was an investment banker and a stay-at-home mom before finding her voice on stage. Now she's one of the most sought-after comics working today. She'll be here to talk about grief, family, and why humor matters now more than ever.
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current. The deadline for President Trump's 50% tariffs is this Wednesday, and some experts say Canada needs to make more concessions during the negotiations with the U.S. How are the trade talks going, and what does this all mean for Canadian businesses?
This is World Report.
Good morning, I'm Mike Wise. Gasoline was the main driver as inflation ticked up to 3% last month. Statistics Canada is out with its latest consumer price index. It shows that after a sharp decline in June, the revved-up crisis in the Middle East pushed global gas prices higher. The CBC senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has the details.
Inflation was expected to come in hot, but this is even hotter than economists had been expecting. The main driver, of course, is gasoline. Gas prices had started to moderate through the spring, but through June and then again in July, the uncertainty in the Middle East fueled another surge in gas prices. Travel and tourism both rose considerably as well. One interesting note, grocery prices moderated a bit. In June, food purchased from stores came in at 3.9%. That cooled all the way down to 3.1% in July. So food prices are still rising, and they're rising faster than the headline, but there is some progress there. But the broad story here is that inflation remained hot, but it also remains largely contained to the most energy-sensitive sectors, and it hasn't bled over into other categories, at least not yet. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
Another number on the rise, citizenship applications, mainly from Americans. New data obtained by CBC News shows applications have surged up nearly 50% in April and May alone. This comes after Ottawa made changes under Bill C-3 last year. As Elizabeth Thompson explains, it's creating an expanding backlog and piles of paperwork.
Each request, you are going through boxes and boxes of material to find a single document sometimes.
Alyssa Hyduck is president of the Association of Canadian Archivists. Her members are being swamped by requests for genealogical records from people applying for Canadian citizenship certificates, a lot of them Americans. Hyduck says some are going back hundreds of years to prove they had a Canadian ancestor.
A lot of these records are pre-Confederation.
Under new citizenship rules that went into effect in December, anyone who can prove direct descent from a Canadian ancestor is eligible for Canadian citizenship. The certificate allows them to apply for a Canadian passport, live or work in Canada. As of May 31st, more than 6,000 people have been certified Canadian through Bill C-3. More than 17,000 others were granted it because a parent was Canadian. But that's just the tip of a very large iceberg. Currently, more than 121,000 applications are waiting for a decision. The government says that wait could take more than 2 years. The program has also had problems. In June, the government suddenly suspended the certificates issued to 100 people, saying it had concerns about the documents they submitted. Some had already moved to Canada. Most have been resolved, but NDP immigration critic Jenny Kwan wants answers.
So it really makes no sense whatsoever what's going on.
Meanwhile, Hyduck wants government funding to help deal with the flood of requests from people who want to be certified Canadian. Elizabeth Thompson, CBC News, Ottawa.
U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law is meeting with Israel's prime minister today. Jared Kushner aims to convince Benjamin Netanyahu to sign a U.S.-backed Gaza peace plan. He reportedly met with the new leader of Hamas, Khalil al-Hayya, in Egypt yesterday. Earlier this month, Netanyahu rejected the Gaza Board of Peace's proposal, claiming it does not sufficiently guarantee Hamas will disarm. Netanyahu is facing pressure from Israeli hardliners in lead up to an election in October. Opening statements begin today in the Tupac Shakur murder trial. The rapper was shot and killed in Las Vegas nearly 30 years ago. 63-year-old Dwayne Davis is charged with his murder based on his own memoir. Reporter Steve Futterman has the latest from Las Vegas.
For nearly 3 decades, it's been one of the most talked about unsolved murders. Today, Dwayne Davis, a former powerful gang leader, goes on trial. He isn't accused of pulling the trigger, but rather putting together all the elements to make sure it happened. The prosecution's key evidence is Davis's own words from his 2019 memoir and interviews. Davis admits supplying the gun used in the attack and being in the car that pulled up alongside Shakur. Legal analyst Caroline Polisi.
He really spoke pretty openly about his involvement in this alleged murder, and that is now coming back to haunt him.
The defense claims that Davis was embellishing and fabricating, hoping to increase sales of his book. And Davis now also says he wasn't even in Las Vegas the night of the killing. A cousin of Shakur, William Lassane, believes Davis is responsible.
He admitted his role in the murder of Tupac Shakur.
continuously, repeatedly. He was screaming it out publicly. So the guilt lies with what he said himself.
The trial is expected to last 4 to 5 weeks, and there will be TV cameras in the courtroom. Steve Futterman, CBC News, Las Vegas.
Actress Hayden Panettiere has died. The 36-year-old starred in the hit TV series Nashville and Heroes, but she began her career at just 8 months old. Panettiere described her difficult introduction to Hollywood to CBS back in May.
Every moment on set, I didn't care about anybody else's opinion but my mom's, because I knew that if she was unhappy with my performance in any way, that the rest of the day was going to be ruined.
Yes.
It was going to be a very bad day.
Panettiere had been promoting her book, This Is Me, A Reckoning. In it, she describes her struggles with postpartum depression and addiction. The actress would have turned 37 on Friday. No cause of death has been announced. Panettiere leaves behind an 11-year-old daughter whom she shares with Ukrainian boxer Vladimir Klitschko. Nearly 130 wildfires are burning across British Columbia, including the Bald Range Fire near Okanagan Lake. Residents of more than 1,000 properties in the Summerland area have been cleared to return. They live closest to the lake in areas mostly untouched by the fire. But as the CBC's Helen Pike reports, many more people are still waiting to learn the fate of their homes.
Hello, this is a critical alert from District of Summerland.
For Zane and Kirsten Scullard, they didn't know what to expect as they rounded the corner, but quickly, relief.
We're just praying for the firefighters, to be honest, because we're good. Our home is safe, and thanks to them.
Yeah, I have to say it's been overwhelming.
Nearby, Sandy Martins was packed for a vacation when the evacuation order dropped. Back now, the house is just how he left it.
Same as any other day after work. Yeah, except it's like a ghost town around here, so it's quiet.
Yeah, it's kind of devastating.
Melody Willis found out through word of mouth the fire hit her farm.
I don't know what's left. I've heard all the fencing is gone.
She wishes those in her situation had more clarity ahead of the phased re-entry planning.
I completely understand.
Mayor Doug Holmes sympathizes, but he doesn't have a lot of clarity or answers either.
There are still a couple parts of town where fire is still burning, power lines are down.
The mayor says residents home now are still under an evacuation alert. A wind change could threaten the district again.
It is getting larger, still out of control. The reason we're able to bring people back to Summerland is it's growing away from Summerland.
The mayor is cautious but optimistic that more people can go home in the coming days. Helen Pike, CBC News, Summerland, British Columbia.
Also in BC, Tumbler Ridge is demolishing its only high school today. Earlier this year, an 18-year-old opened up fire inside the building, killing students, a staff member, and then herself. As CBC's Michelle Allen tells us, officials hope demolishing the site will help the community move on.
Careful, staged, trauma-informed. That's how officials describe the teardown of Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, where a shooter killed 5 children and 1 education assistant in February. Once the site of one of Canada's deadliest mass shootings, they'll restore the lot to grass by the fall. Chad Anderson is the school district's chair. He previously told CBC that crews spent several weeks removing everything from the building.
Starting from the inside out, effectively.
They compacted everything and drove it in covered trucks to landfills in other towns, where they made sure it was covered quickly. Necessary steps to prevent scavengers from looking for souvenirs in the tragedy, he said.
This process has been designed to ensure that's not possible and that, people can expect privacy through this.
Tumbler Ridge was the community's only high school. It's been closed since the shooting. Students have been taking classes in portables. Premier David Eby said in May that the plan was to build a new school somewhere else as quickly as possible. They'll have access to $200 million in funding from the federal and provincial governments to do it. We don't know where the new school will be or what it will look like, only that it will be different. Michelle Allen, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. One of the most popular stories on our website this morning, a breakdown of what's happening with the Canada-U.S. trade negotiations ahead of that new round of tariffs that could go into effect on Wednesday. That's on cbcnews.ca. I'm Mike Wise. This is CBC News.
Well, Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM, 990 AM, and everywhere on the CBC Manitoba YouTube page. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. If you hear a little bit of banging and clanging behind me, that's because we have a robot in studio. It's actually a Mars rover prototype designed by the University of Manitoba students who competed in the Canadian International Rover Challenge last week. So they've brought that massive rover in studio. They're kind of quickly working to assemble it right now, and they're going to tell us all about that competition and all the work that went in to putting it together and so it could compete. And it's got a pretty cool name too, and it's a vibe, that's for sure. Well, stay tuned for that and much, much more coming up this half hour on Information Radio. Stay tuned. It's fun watching them. You have a question here? One sec. Yeah. Yes, what's that? Oh. Okay, well, we'll mention that. We'll talk about the team in a little bit later on here on air. But still to come here on the show, they're working feverishly. If you see in the studio here, well, we'll get to that shortly here. But first, though, let's check in with Megan Ketchison with a look at news headlines.
Well, the inflation numbers are out and the news is not good. Nationally, the inflation rate jumped 2.8% in July. In Manitoba, that's up 4.2%. We'll hear more coming up about how that's squeezing people's grocery budgets. And a cross-border investigation has ended with a Manitoba man safely rescued after an alleged abduction. North Dakota State Patrol say a 31-year-old Manitoba man abducted a 37-year-old Winnipeg man on Saturday. They then crossed into North Dakota. Investigators say they used surveillance cameras, cell phone trackers, and license plate readers to track down the suspect vehicle to Alexandria, Minnesota. And we'll have more coming up at 8:30.
Thank you very much, Megan.
You're welcome.
Let's take a quick look at your weather here on Earth. In Winnipeg, 16 right now. We are warming up to 23 today. Now, there is a bit of a chance of showers or thunder showers this morning. And then that chance dissipates kind of throughout the day. But then by the late afternoon, evening, another chance of showers or thunder showers later on today. It is going to be dipping down to 10 overnight and then warming up to 23 tomorrow here in Winnipeg. And it's actually a very similar case pretty much right across the province. So in Brandon, you got a bit of a higher chance of thunderstorms this morning, 60% chance. And then in Steinbach, also a bit of a higher chance of thunderstorms this morning, or just showers, 60% chance of showers or thunderstorms as well. Then up in Thompson, you're at 8 right now, warming up to 14 today with a 60% chance of showers as well. It's going to be a chance of rain overnight, dipping down to 7, and then warming up to 16. And that is your forecast for now. Let's check in now with Sierra Sanders, who's also been very busy trying to get this Mars rover up and running, but she has taken some time to tell us about the commute as well.
Yeah,
Hi.
Corey. Hi, Corey. It's been a task, but we have it here. It's very exciting. Especially if you are not tuning into our YouTube live stream, you should check into that right now.
It's one of those duties is assigned, assemble a Mars rover. I don't think they put that on the job description.
Yeah, I don't think they did either, but I'm happy to help. New experiences every day that I will gladly take. But the commute has been very quiet this morning. I'm not hearing about any major situations or backups at this time, but I do want to remind folks about that Plessis Road closure that starts today and lasts until August 21st, which is this Friday. So there's a full closure of all northbound and southbound lanes between Camille Sis Street and Autumn Way for rail crossing construction and maintenance. Travel will temporarily be restored in both directions from Fermor Avenue to the CN Terminal and Autumn Way there. So there is a little bit of a workaround there, but they are asking you to find alternate routes there for this week. So pretty big, substantial closure that you want to keep in mind there on your commute. But other than that, not hearing about too much, but we still have a little bit of time left in the show. So if there's something that's popping up, I'd love to hear about it. Give me a call on that CBC commuter line. The number's 204-788-3093.
Well, for our viewers on YouTube this morning, no, your eyes do not deceive you. There is a large pink robot in our studio, and its name hence the theme here, is Prairie Panther, and it was designed by a team of students at the University of Manitoba. And for the annual Canadian International Rover Challenge held in Drumheller earlier this week, where the Badlands of Alberta stood in for the Red Rocks of Mars. And Sydney Povey is the president of the University of Manitoba robotics team, and she joins me this morning with the Prairie Panther here in studio, and it's taking up a large portion of our studio. Hi there, Sydney. Hi. And for listeners who haven't heard of the Canadian International Rover Challenge, what is it?
So the Canadian International Rover Challenge is an annual competition that is held in Drumheller, Alberta every year. And it is an international competition. While a lot of the competitors are from Canada and they drive in, we do have competitors that are from, we saw some folk from Mexico, from Poland, from Russia, all around the world that come in to compete in the Badlands of Alberta. And if you've ever been to the Badlands, it looks a lot like the surface of Mars. So great place for competition.
And just for listeners who aren't watching on YouTube, just to describe, can you just describe what this rover looks like just right beside us here?
Yeah, so it's a pretty big rover. Very pink in color, has some it has a new suspension on it, so it has 4 struts and 4 kind of bike springs holding it up together. That was in particular for one of our tasks where we had to drop the rover. 2 antenna and about a kind of a glass over plexiglass roof and floor on it, so you can see all of the fun electrical components on the inside too. Has a camera mast with a PoE camera on top. And the only thing that's missing on this rover is it does not have its robotic arm. There's a big pink one that sits on the platform at the front.
Okay, so it does a lot of things.
Yes.
And before we get to, I know this has been a fluid situation this morning as you've brought in, tried to get it set up for us here. You brought an assistant or colleague with you. Can you tell us about a little your name and about yourself?
My name is Noah Reeder. I'm the team lead of the rover team this year, so
I
do more of the technical stuff, and she does the fun stuff.
I do the fun stuff.
I'm sure you find the technical stuff fun, though, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yeah. So just tell us a little bit about the trials that this big old Mars rover goes through at this kind of competition.
For sure. So at our competition, there are 5 tasks that the rover has to complete. And something fun about our competition is that every year there's a little story that's attached to it. So this year's competition, the one before was you were landing on Mars and we have to explore it and discover it. Now this year's competition is assuming there's a colony already established. So all the tasks are related to grabbing snacks for a party or grabbing, kind of stealing a artifact and bringing it back and avoiding cameras and lights.
So what kind of stuff so you had to grab snacks? Like was it like a bag of chips or what kind of stuff did the rover have to grab?
Normally they use, everyday items, like it's like a tennis ball, but you have to follow instructions to put in the codes and use your robotic arm to put in everything and grab the snacks afterwards.
Oh, and how did you guys do in the competition?
We got 21st out of 27 teams, so pretty good for our team. This is our 3rd year running as a team, and honestly, it was a great learning experience for everyone, and I thought everyone had a good time.
So kind of teams who have probably had more experience, like maybe some more like universities who've had a program for a longer time, they get to kind of build on their experience throughout the years, right? And then are they generally the ones who end up doing really, really well? Is that how it works?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
So you've, I'm sure, made some mistakes that you're ready to learn from for next year, and it kind of grows every year.
Oh, absolutely.
And so tell us a little bit about what it takes to build this, and what even gave you guys the idea to build a Mars rover of all things?
It honestly takes a full year of designing and CADing and showing it to our advisors for review, and then some over the summer and over the second kind of semester of school we actually start manufacturing it. But throughout that process, it's a lot of talking with professors or advisors or faculty members or industry members for that. So
okay, and I know you're also working on a budget as well, right? I'm sure, which is also different. So what kind of what does it cost to build a rover?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, good question. So the overall budget for this year was $35,000. A portion of that also helps fund our travel and accommodation when we go to competition.
Yeah, okay.
So I'd say around $20K goes into this.
Wow. So there's a $20K vehicle in here, which is that's like a more than a lot of people's cars. Is here. That's wild.
Yeah,
and just tell us about how much. I'll bring you in here, Noah. Just like how much, how big is the team, and how much work is it? Just like the little details that you have to think of.
Yeah, we have about 30 people who are like regular members that contribute a lot.
How much sleep have you lost over this?
A lot.
I could only imagine, right? The email chain just must be wild, just absolutely wild. And what do you get from this? Like, what are you hoping to learn from actually taking part in this program? Because this is extracurricular, right? It's not that you guys are employed to build this. Why do you guys sign up? Why do you want to take the time to all this time out of your free time on top of university to build something like this?
Right. Honestly, it's to learn for the love of the game of robotics. There's a lot of our team members that are very interested in mechatronics or area or this field, and also for community too. You get to meet a lot of students, like-minded, and work on a project together. It really brings a community together to have a shared goal throughout the entire year and be able to see it through at the end.
And what's some highlights? Is there a component on this that was like the most frustrating component? I had a friend who was in SAE, which they build a car, and he would always come home complaining about like this like certain component. Was there a part that like there was the most contentious component or the hardest to build on this road? Because it's got a camera, it's got all these things going on.
Yeah, no, I mean the whole of the rover is pretty complex. Not the most interesting, but probably the one that gave us the most problems is the camera mast. Just because as you might be able to see right
it's
now,
like PVC pipe with this like it's it looks the least technological in some ways, but
yes,
you kind of had to MacGyver. It looks like
exactly, and so you'd think that it's pretty standard and easy to build, but because it's on kind of an acrylic roof right now for people that are seeing in online, the camera mast kept shaking and cracking the roof whenever we would try to drive the rover around. So that we had to. I don't know if you see those little pink struts that we have on it right now. That was in an effort to fix that shaking and moving of the rover.
Okay, so I'm sure lots of humming and hawing, standing around staring at it. Okay,
yeah.
Does it haunt your dreams a little bit?
A little bit.
So what happens to it now? Because obviously, is it just you? This is the exact same. Do you build a new one next year? Or you just build on this one every year?
Yeah. So the intention is, I think, for this coming year is to reiterate on this and improve parts of it for next year's competition, since that's what a lot of the other teams do. But over time, as we continue to use this rover, we will hopefully restart a new rover from scratch and have that being built while currently using this rover, and then eventually when it's ready to switch, we'll switch it out with the newest model, I guess.
Model. Okay,
yeah.
Will it be also a Pink Panther? Or will it be a totally new thing? Have you thought about that yet?
Probably something different. I think we try to have a new theme every year. So
okay, that's awesome. Yeah. And yourself, just in terms of what are you hoping to learn from this to take into the career world? What are you hoping to do?
Honestly, I mean, I'm very interested in the world of robotics or power systems as well. Honestly, it's fun to be on the team regardless of where my career path takes me. It is a memory I'll always share with or have of my university career. So, yeah.
And what about yourself, Noah? What do you want to do?
I'm really interested in the robotics part of it, and we haven't really started doing a lot of automation yet on the team, but that is the final goal, is that we'll do a lot of these tasks autonomously.
Okay. And is NASA ever like the goal, the dream, anything like that, or Canadian Space Agency, anything like that?
I mean, yeah,
if they reached
absolutely.
out, if someone's listening and they want to offer you a job, you take it.
I would love to. Anyone from NASA or the Canadian Space Agency, absolutely.
Okay, well, we'll put you in touch if they reach out. Well, Sydney, Noah, thank you very much for your time, and congrats on all the hard work you put in and all the hard work you put in to bring this into the studio. You should have seen the flustered looks on them as they just sat down the moment before they were about to go on air. So thank you both very much. Congrats, and look forward to see what you do in future years too. We'll have to have you on again with whatever the newest iteration is.
All right. Thank you so much.
Sydney Povey is the president of the University of Manitoba robotics team, and Noah Reeder is the tech lead for the team. Well,
Things I can't do anymore.
That's Nia Nadurada with her new single, Some Changes.
My name is Kevin Mallon. We opened up an office and shop space and live and work in the West End every day. The best part about the West End is for sure the community. I get such a warm feeling driving down the streets with the trees hanging over the streets so nicely. There's kids everywhere. I help by shoveling my neighbor's walkway. They help by making delicious Indian food for me. It's a great community. Love living there.
People, places, and stories. CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM.
8:27 right now here on Information Radio. And in pretty much exactly a month's time, if you're in Thompson, we want to hear from you. We're going to be coming to Thompson to talk everything, well, Thompson, the civic election just ahead for the Northern Manitoba City. And we are coming to town to do a live show from the Tim Hortons in Thompson, and we want to hear from you. What are the issues, the civic issues you want us to focus on? Are there certain stories, concerns you have heading into that civic election? We're going to try to get the candidates on the show to tell us what they want to see, what their vision is for the city. So stay tuned for that. We're going to be in Thompson in mid-September. And if you want to email us, tell us what your hopes are for the city of Thompson and what issues you think are important to you. You can email us, radio893@cbc.ca. That's radio893@cbc.ca. Well, so with us in studio now is Marjorie Dowhouse, host of Radio News. Tell us a little bit about today's call-in. Hi.
Well, hi, Corey. As you may recall, last week we had a story about Molly the tortoise.
Yes,
remember?
I do.
Yeah, she was found after she disappeared from home. Her owners are actually going to be joining us on Radio News.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this afternoon for the call-in. So the question we're asking, strangest pet you've ever had? This is also, we're asking this question too because some researchers are looking at domesticating raccoons.
Oh, wow.
So we're talking about all the strange pets
Mm-hmm.
that you've ever had before.
I never had a strange pet per se, but
Uh-huh.
my one pet story is that I had a hamster. Her name was
Mhm.
Trixie.
Oh, that's so
I was
cute.
8.
Uh-huh.
And when we bought her, we didn't realize that she was pregnant.
Oh.
And then I woke up one day to 10 baby hamsters. And we are like, what do we do with these hamsters? And the pet store wouldn't take them back until they were grown. So we had to we had to buy a separate cage because apparently mommy hamsters like to eat baby hamsters sometimes. I know. I didn't know this either. This is what I heard. And then so we had to put them in separate cages for a little while. It was a whole thing. My parents said, no, you're keeping those hamsters in your room. You got yourself into this. That was the lesson I had to learn. So there's these hamsters all night
Yeah.
running around. But I mean, not a strange pet, but a strange surprise.
Yeah, strangest I've ever owned is a betta fish, and that's probably not even that strange.
Are those the ones that fight?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's kind of fun.
So give us a call coming up on noon and join the conversation. Strangest pet you've ever had.
Okay, tune in. That's coming up on Radio Noon. Thank you very much, Marge.
Thanks, Corey.
That's Marjorie Dowhouse. Time now for your CBC News from Manitoba.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg at 8:30. Mostly cloudy and 16 at the Forks. We're looking at a mix of sun and cloud today. Chance of showers or thunder showers and a high of 23. Inflation rose in July to an annual rate of 3%. Statistics Canada reveals the latest figures this morning. It was 2.8% in June, a drop from the month previous thanks to lower gas prices for that month. Now, this time, the higher gas prices are being blamed for the July increase. In Manitoba, July inflation is up 4.2% from 4% in June. A community organization in Winnipeg that hosts a meal program and offers produce bags at a reduced price says demand for food is skyrocketing. Chalmers Neighborhood Renewal Corporation is in Elmwood. Executive Director Leilani Esteban Velabara says up to 400 people would come buy their $10 produce bags at the start of the summer. Now, more than 800 people are showing up. Esteban Velabara says the food inflation is pricing people out.
That's the sad reality that a lot of our participants are facing, is that if they can't get access to food, then they're sacrificing something. So whether that be medication, whether that be the ability to go to a doctor because they can't afford the transportation, whether that be not feeding themselves because they have to feed their children.
Harvest Manitoba says its food hamper numbers have also gone up from 24,000 households in 2025 to 27,000 as of April of this year. A cross-border investigation has ended with a Manitoba man safely rescued after an alleged abduction. North Dakota State Patrol says a 31-year-old Manitoba man abducted a 37-year-old Winnipeg man on Saturday. They then crossed into North Dakota. The investigators say they used surveillance cameras, cell phone trackers, and license plate readers to track the suspect vehicle to Alexandria, Minnesota. We're told the victim managed to break free and run to a convenience store. The suspect was arrested shortly afterwards. Police say the investigation continues. Northern Manitobans are sounding the alarm about the lack of veterinary care. Just one full-time veterinary clinic operates in the region. That means pet owners are having to drive for over 4 hours for emergency care, sometimes arriving too late for their beloved animals. Oswald Saw is the president of the Thompson Humane Society. He says the shortage has been happening for years and the community is getting desperate.
If anyone, hears this and is interested, that is a vet, we're very open to talk to you, because right now Thompson is in dire need, the region is in dire need of regular veterinary services.
Thompson has not had a full-time vet since 2024. Vets do come to the community for short periods every month, but none are based there. A donation drive brought hundreds of used shoes to one of the city's poorest neighborhoods. Families in North Point Douglas got to pick over 500 pairs of shoes yesterday. Local outreach group Cebu's Cubs host the event. Co-organizer Siobhan Faulkner says the shoes are often taken for granted, but for the city's most vulnerable, having more than one is a luxury.
There's lots of invisible, underserved people in the community that we don't see on a regular basis, but still have that need for shoes, that need those things that aren't always in your face. And so it just is one more level of support for people.
The shoe donation drive is in its second year. In national news, Tumbler Ridge is demolishing its high school today. This after a mass shooting forced it to close earlier this year. The CBC's Michelle Allen reports.
Careful, staged, trauma-informed. That's how officials describe the teardown of Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, where a shooter killed 5 children and 1 education assistant in February. On Monday, they start removing the building's exterior. Once the site of one of Canada's deadliest mass shootings, they'll restore the lot to grass by the fall. Chad Anderson is the school district's chair. He previously told CBC that crews spent several weeks removing everything from the building.
Starting from the inside out, effectively.
They compacted everything and drove it in covered trucks to landfills in other towns. Tumbler Ridge was the community's only high school. It's been closed since the shooting. Students have been taking classes in portables. Premier David Eby said in May that the plan was to build a new school somewhere else as quickly as possible. They'll have access to $200 million in funding from the federal and provincial governments to do it. We don't know where the new school will be or what it will look like, only that it will be different. Michelle Allen, CBC News, Vancouver.
And that's the CBC News from Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you very much, Megan.
Thank you.
That is Megan Ketchison at your CBC News desk. Well, let's take a final look at the commute now with Sierra Sanders.
Hi, Corey. It's been very quiet this morning on this Monday edition of Information Radio, so not too much to report what's going on right now, but I will remind folks about that Plessis Road closure from today until August 21st, this Friday. So full closure of all northbound and southbound lanes between Camille Street and Autumn Way for rail crossing construction and maintenance. Travel will be temporarily restored in both directions from Fermor Avenue to the CN Terminal and Autumn Way there. So pretty substantial closure that you want to keep an eye out for and find an alternate route there.
Thank you very much, Sierra. And there also this morning, there is a chance of thunderstorms here in Winnipeg. 16 right now, heading for a high of 23. And then later this afternoon, evening area, that there is also another chance of thunderstorms or showers later today. Dipping down to 10 overnight, high of 23 tomorrow. Well, thanks for tuning in to CBC Radio 1. This is Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM. And also thanks to the APs who put together today's show. Sophia Peralta-Baron, Kaylin Monkman, and Jim Agapito is our community reporter. And our news team, Megan Ketchison, Joni Nicolo, Darren Bernhardt, and Alana Cole, as well as our wonderful live team, Jenica Sewell, Darren Morash, and Sierra Sanders. I'm Corey Funk, in for Marcy Marcusa. I'll be back tomorrow Up next on CBC Radio 1, The Current. Have a good one.